A Cowboy for All Seasons, Riverdale Ranch Romance Book Number 7, written by Jewel Allen, narrated by Melissa Connell and Scott Rose.
Chapter 1. Patrick. To my random bareback bronc-riding pick Festus, I see you. I see the grit, the muscle, that sour stench, not just of sweat, but excrement. Your eyes rolled back, ears pricked, coiled like a spring caged in four walls. Yep, we've crossed paths before. It seemed that previous day I would be the only one stuck on you like a burr. I was the one who you tried to launch so high in the sky when we came down. There was only one way short of spectacular. On your side hurting, but trying to hurt me too. Downright kill me if we're to be honest. My legs still ache something fierce from that break on cold mornings. I declare we're even. You're trapped in this miserable chute, this pit of awfulness. You and me, tough guy. Nothing personal. I'd just as soon let you get on with your day. But I gotta get this win. If not, I can already see that smug smile on Sonny Titmus's face. Misnamed sourpuss, that one. Whooping and hollering to any who will listen about how he's the best bareback bronc rider in the county. Just 'cause he and his dad own that spread of cattle land doesn't make him the automatic champ. As long as I'm around, he can't crow that loud. Up close I can see years of scars on your back. You've been ridden hard, kicked in the flanks, your belly cinched so tight to make your gut want to explode with fire and desperation. That fire in the belly, I got that too. Not as hot burning as before, but it's still there. Gonna spew poetry, Patrick? One of the rodeo hands asked me with a smirk, sounded mighty amused and ragging. Or are you gonna break this bronc? My legs tense and I can sense Festus tensing too. He'd make a good horse for someone if we hadn't already soured him forever on humans. He's brawny, with strong shoulders, an easy keeper. He wouldn't rob anyone of extra hay. Extra hay is for sissies. Riding bareback broncs ain't for sissies. In due time, I say. The young'un leaves us alone. A smart move. I was getting ready to pin him. Name's Evan, I think, with my stare. He's the younger brother of a friend, still in high school, but huge and strapping. He's clean shaven and wet behind his ears. Hasn't seen hardly any of this world and trying to act like he belongs in the rodeo already. Only a few belong here truly, paid for with our souls. My girlfriend tells me I've gone and done that, and sometimes even more. I used to debate her that there was nothing else to give, not when you've given your heart and soul to each ride. A ride so short, and yet it feels like an eternity. Of course, the rodeo exacts a hefty fine in exchange for the feeling of being alive. I should finally ride Festus out, I know, but I take a split second and look up at the bleachers where my girlfriend usually sits. Winnie, with her flaming red hair, is instantly recognizable. I finally had to tell her in recent years to not come down to the chutes at competition time because the hands paid more attention to her than my well-being. A horse could have trampled, eaten me, and spit me out, and they'd still be struggling for one-liners to impress her with. It's maybe just 2 seconds of a pause. My eyes squint against the sun setting behind the bleachers. I find her, and our eyes connect across the arena, dust and hay motes filling the air between us like blackbirds when the winter thaws, thick and hazy with an unearthly noise. I cannot discern more than that red hair tumbling in glorious waves around her shoulder, tamed somewhat by that sassy cowgirl hat. But in my mind's eye, her beauty is crystal clear. Eyes afire and lips rosy, her lovely freckled skin heightened with life. Breathtaking, like the first day we met, when I turned to see the source of commotion at Jimmy's bar and walking in was this redhead. She means the world to me, but we both know that's not enough. I need this danger and death defiance. Each time I get on a bronc, doesn't matter who, a Festus or Drifty or Rico, I put my life on their back. She's been making noise about me quitting rodeo and getting married. The first is not even thinkable, and as to the second, well, how can a cowboy like me promise a girl a steady home life when I still have a few more spins of the fortune wheel? How can I promise her we could be together forever when we both know I could just not come home like Harry Eggers didn't that one day, gored by a bull one fine autumn day? She deserves more. She deserves somebody who wouldn't break her heart. I can never guarantee that. "Patrick," a voice bellows in my ear. It takes me a minute to find the speaker, as everyone is talking all at once, most of all that coltish Evan. Meanwhile, Festus is gathering his energy, under me like a mower belt stuck on a rock and about ready to spring any minute. It's my brother Sheldon, younger than my 41 years, but acts older, as though he knows life's secrets by virtue of him being married and adopting 3 preteen siblings, 2 boys and 1 girl in a matter of 2 years. He's always got it together, and inevitably seems to be having more fun than some of us bachelor brothers of his. We are a dwindling breed, with 3 of the 6 of us married. Somewhere near, I'm sure Pops, our father, is channeling himself into Sheldon, transmitting his thoughts. Pops no longer gets near the chutes if he can avoid it, but he certainly takes the blame for my rabid passion for the rodeo. I shadowed him, clear from when I could toddle around, and never stopped. "Get your head on straight, brother," Sheldon barks, his normally calm eyes aflame, his forehead right up against mine. "You ready or what?" I nod. Sheldon thumps my hat with his hand and everyone shoves off, stepping on Festus with one cowboy boot like they could keep this pent-up storm at bay. They pull back and scatter, leaving me alone with the horse, and someone's hand loosens the gate latch with a loud, rusty whine. I don't think, I don't feel. I'm here for the ride and the adventure and the glory. Let it all play out. I'm ready for whatever. "Bring it," I say. Like a crack of lightning across a dark sky, Festus launches with me on his back, out the chute, and into freedom.
Chapter 2. Winnie. I hate this. I hate watching Patrick being tossed back and forth on the back of a crazed, cinched bronc, like a rag doll disguised as a cowboy. Other gals might think it's macho or sexy, but I just think it's the most juvenile thing in the world to get on the back of a bronc, even if saddled, with the notion that you might or might not get killed that day. Not to mention that poor beast gets so provoked, of course it turns ill-mannered. But that's just the cowboy life, Patrick says. His view of all this is really skewed. My stomach has been churning all day. I tried to fill my time with distractions like my work as a realtor. Leaving the office early to help Sheldon's wife, 𝗷𝗂𝗃, can some peaches, which ended up with me helping her kids with their homework while 𝗷𝗂𝗃 canned, which I didn't mind, though golly, my algebra is rusty, let me tell you. Taking a different and quieter route to the country fairgrounds. But it still wasn't enough. My mind has been wrapped around Patrick. It's just like it has been since we met some 5 years ago. Golly, he was something, though, back then. I had just brokered a realty deal, making my first substantial commission. Gone to town with my coworkers, and we all decided to go to the local bar. I'm kind of a teetotaler, not wanting to lose control through drink, so I'd already dibbed that I would drive everyone home afterward. "Do you know it's illegal for a woman to wear boots like yours?" I turned, and there he was, all of his 6-foot-tall frame, spiky blonde hair, and blue, or was it gray, eyes. It was hard to tell in the bar. He had deep slits on his stubbled cheeks for dimples. Between the facial hair on that strong jaw and the dimples, I didn't know what to focus on. They were all supremely distracting, so I focused on his eyes. Big mistake. When he flicked his eyes up, they appeared silver, like a wild animal's at night. I saw my whole future flash in front of me, and it included this man, whoever he was. "Oh," I said, keeping still and calm as I could. "And why is that?" "Because they could cause a major traffic jam." 5 points for the cute metaphor," I said, "but 0 for originality. I swiveled on the bar stool away from him, hoping he'd get the hint. I reached for my virgin pina colada and kneaded the sides with my fingers, needing to release the surge of energy I suddenly overflowed with. It was noisy in the bar, so if he would have taken a step toward me, I wouldn't have been able to hear it, but I could see his reflection in the mirror, him and that cowboy hat slightly tipped off center, like he couldn't be bothered to right it. Considering what to do with me, he was probably one of those troublemakers at school when he was younger, one who didn't stand for bullies and swung a fist or two for a scrawny friend. But also, he'd have been the one caught for smoking a cigarette under the bleachers with his no-good buddies. I didn't recall smelling smoke on him. I picked up on things like that. Maybe he'd kicked the habit for good if he ever did smoke, or maybe he never smoked at all, though I highly doubted it. He clambered on the stool next to mine. If he had been another man, he'd have taken advantage of our proximity and tried to brush his arm against mine. Men were always engineering stuff like that. But he didn't, which seemed like a feat for someone with long limbs like he had to make room for mine. He kept a polite distance between us, though I swear I felt as though there was some thick force that kept us taut and wound up. We both acted like we were indifferent to each other. He glanced at my glass. Virgin pina colada? I am driving tonight. Even after all the years, I couldn't help the wobble in my voice when I talked, even obliquely, about alcohol. For as long as I could remember, Daddy drank and treated Mom poorly until she couldn't stand it anymore, moving me and my younger sister far away from him. It was dumb, but my fingers were even kind of shaking. So why was I even in a bar? To be with my friends, what else was there to do in Sunny Ridge? Maybe I was meant to meet this guy. I'm driving too, he said, nodding toward the bartender, who handed him a clear liquid in a glass. Sprite. I took a sip of my drink, felt it slide down my throat with a little sour kick. My name is Patrick. He was faced forward, so he could have been telling the bartender who was tidying up his space. There were others within earshot, but I knew this was for my benefit. Winnie. He slid his thumb and forefinger down the condensation of his glass, leaving fat streaks. Would you like to dance, Winnie? My knee-jerk reaction was to say no. He was trouble. I was sure of it. I knew nothing about him, just that he didn't drink when he was driving that night. Was that good enough for me? I turned to look at the dance floor, as if it would help me make my mind up. The music was a slow song by Garth Brooks. Why'd it have to be that? I could say no to anything but Garth. Several guys were eyeing me, then Patrick, then back, trying to decide if they could ask me to dance. Better him than any of the others, I supposed. I stood up, took a couple of steps, then stopped, looking over my shoulder. Patrick's eyes held a hint of amusement, watching me. Coming, I said. By the time we joined the crowd on the dance floor, we were spilling out and over in an aisle between tables. If anyone wanted to, they could have reached out and touched us. The lights were glaring around the perimeter, and people were sloshed. Hardly the right atmosphere for a nice dance, let alone a romantic one. Dancing was one of those mysteries in life where complete strangers could hug one another without strings attached. Patrick was tall, a good foot more than me. He took my right hand in his left and slipped his arm around my waist, snug, the way I like to be held by a dancing partner, confident, like he wasn't about to let me fall. I should have felt safe. And yet I didn't. Warning bells sounded in my brain. Plus, I was sure the nearby tables were watching us. I was already warm, but getting even more so under those strobe lights. Want to move somewhere else? He asked. I raised my eyes to his, startled. How had he read my mind? He gave me one look, and then he was pulling me by the hand, skirting around the tables and to a darker part of the stage, so we were no longer in the limelight. Oh, and there I was, hoping to be discovered by a scout for my dance moves, I said. He gave me a sideways glance. Do people even do that anymore? Get discovered? Uh-huh. I guess. I wouldn't know. His eyes roved over my face. I swear he was looking at each and every freckle. I should have covered my cheeks more with foundation. And then again, maybe not. Certainly not for him. He could take me as I was. He took his time. The man knew how to prolong a moment. When his gaze settled on my mouth, I felt as though he'd run his thumb over my bottom lip. His lips twitched. Liar. About what? About never modeling. A different kind of girl could have simpered, batted her lashes over the compliment. I wasn't that kind of girl. I don't like pretending. His hold on me tightened, just a fraction, but I felt it, the heat rubbing between my blouse and the buttons of his long-sleeved shirt. Then you wouldn't mind straight talk, he said. My heart drummed. It depends. On what? On the kind of talk. He nodded slow, like he had all the time in the world. How about we just test it? I waited, silent. I want to see you after this. His voice had deepened, stirring me like a man had never stirred me before. I turned my head so he couldn't look in my eyes. I looked everywhere but him. I thought of all the couples on the dance floor like us, strangers who would probably not talk again after this song. Well? His breath was warm on my cheek. What do you do, Patrick? I raised my eyes to his. His eyes glittered like the gray blue of the summer lake where I grew up as a little girl. I ranch. When I'm not at the rodeo. I stiffened. No. Anything but that. I sort of pulled away, just to put a bit more space between us. What? He said. You got something against rodeo cowboys? He was smiling, but his eyes searched mine. I ran my tongue along my teeth and said in a monotone, My dad rodeoed and cheated on my mom. He loosened his hold on me. I could have stepped out and away, and I have bet he wouldn't have run after me. He nodded. Gotcha. We danced politely the rest of the time, running out the music. I was kind of glad I had an excuse to reject him, but I had hoped that maybe this time I wouldn't have a big red flag the size of Texas. The music had ended, and everyone was clapping around us. I leaned, and he broke his hold on me. Not clapping, just watching me, and probably thinking of what he could say so I wouldn't run away. Thanks, I said, already backing off. He nodded, and I left him standing there, swallowed up by the crowd. As my mind turns over this memory, I get angry at myself. We could have left our brief encounter well enough alone, because 5 years later, look where we're at.
Chapter 3. Patrick. Present day. I'm a split second unsettled on Festus. It's hard to get my bearings, 3 seconds in. Each mighty jump by the dirty, rotten horse launches me into a different position on his back. I only have 8 seconds, but each one seems like a slow-mo moment captured on video. Except you can't rewind any of this. You only get one try. Before the ride, I'd said a prayer that I wouldn't break no bones. I edit my prayer and negotiate somewhere in there that I'd stay on. Gotta save the Cowboy's pride. There was a time when I didn't need to rely as much on prayer to stay on. When I was younger, fitter, and had more fire in the belly. I guess you could say I'm slowing down. But that just irks me. In the split second that thought crosses my mind. Over the hill. When you gonna retire, Patrick? Everyone wants to know nowadays, not the least of which is Winnie. Somewhere in the stands, she's watching. Is she still hoping I'd stay on like she used to tell me she'd do? Is she rooting through her popcorn, her eyes no longer following me in the arena? Festus bounces on all 4 hooves, wanting to launch me real bad. No such satisfaction today, boy. Nope, not yet. I let my body follow the arc of movement, throwing my head and leaning back so flat my spine jams the horse's rump. I tense my muscles for control. My job isn't to flop around like a limp rag doll, but to move my arm like those guys in tuxedos conducting orchestras, pumping my arm to a beat that only Festus and I seem to hear. Festus can't shake me. He can't break me. I'm Patrick Brown, and I am still at the top of my game. One last jump and Festus crow hops to the beat of the buzzer. Yes. I follow his choppy movements as I loosen my hold on the saddle handle. Pickup men Darius and Toby come over on either side, and I spring to Darius's horse and saddle before sliding to my boots onto the dirt. Festus is still bucking and crazed, but that's the pickup men's job now. My work is done. I turn to the audience, the direction of Winnie, hoping she's watching as I pump my fist and get the crowd hollering, whooping, and stomping their feet until it's one big roar in my head. As I go to the back of the chutes, my fellow competitors, Cass, Grit, Asher, Boone, and Eli, punch and slap at me with their congratulations. "Didn't think you were going to make it," Cass says in his good-natured ribbing. "Just between the two of us," I mutter. I didn't think I was going to stick either. "You need to put some more glue on your seat next time," Grit razzes. "Don't need none of that," I razz back. Grit is a hefty fellow, and he sure gives those horses a workout. His mounts don't seem to know how to buck off a big guy like him, and by the time they're done figuring out a plan B, 8 seconds have passed. I unwrap the long bandage off my hand, stretching my fingers and flexing the feeling back. My arm's sore, but nothing that I couldn't put an aspirin on, if it even gets to that. I hear my name being mentioned by Larry, the rodeo announcer, and there's so much hooting and hollering going on at the chutes, they drown out whatever he has to say. "You son of a gun," Grit says, flashing his happy-go-lucky smile. "You did it again, old man." He holds a finger up, crooked from some bareback mishap early in his career, thus his name Grit. "#1 so far." I look over to the length of the alley behind the chutes where Asher and his brother Boone are huddling before Asher's bareback ride. Asher still got his ride. Grit follows my glance and shrugs. "I hear he drew out lightning. Festus will push you ahead." "Let's hope so." Asher looks over right at me, as though he's sensing we're bad-mouthing him. He nods in his tight-lipped, intense way. He's a young one, with that hunger that I used to have, a hunger that I still manage to summon up once in a while when I remember what this is all about. His brother Eli's about his opposite, friendly and all, but his loyalty is to his brother, and he responds with a cool tip of his hat when he catches me looking. I'm all beat up, truth be told. My body sore in places I had forgotten existed on my body. My shoulder's burning up like a muscle's torn. I really need to have the doctor check that out, which I've been putting off for some time. Asher's up next. I'm putting away my stuff slow, trying to be all casual, but my ears cocked to follow his progress. I tell myself I couldn't care less if a young'un passes me by, but that's a lie. I want to win this one, bad, just to prove I still have it in me. I want to come out on top. A raucous country song blares from the speakers and Asher is sprung from his chute. I cannot see over the crowd on the platform, but I can imagine what he's doing in the arena. Asher's a short man, perfect for this sport. Lean but compact, clean-limbed, without none of that flailing that a taller person naturally does and has to fight every time. He and Eli in their matching blue shirts are hard to distinguish out in the arena. Asher is the one with the longer hair that curls under the brim of his hat, popular with the girls, especially the teenage ones. He's barely out of high school himself. Upstart, I had billed him in my mind when he first came onto the scene, but he soon dispelled that notion. That kid works hard. The buzzer goes off and there's a ton of cheering, maybe even more than after my ride. He must have stayed on. So now, we wait. It's just a few minutes, but I'm impatient like the broncs waiting in the chutes to be fitted for the saddleback bronc riding contest, their ears pinned back, snorting at the cowboys and rodeo hands. I zip my bag shut and leave it on the ground. Hauling myself onto the chute platform, I pick a spot with the least people. But still, there's one or two who talk to me until the announcer's voice crackles over the speakers. I don't hear what he says because the rankings are on the jumbotron, plain as could be. Asher's name follows number 2, while mine, Patrick Brown, is number 1. All hell breaks loose. The others are coming up to me with their congratulations. Even Asher, his face shadowed by disappointment, comes up like a sport and shakes my hand. As I make my way through friends and strangers alike giving me compliments, a mutton-busting kid come up to me with his hat in hand, wanting an autograph, and I sign. "You had a good ride?" I ask. Mutton-busting took place before our bareback contest. "Yes, sir." He squints up at me and flashes a nervous, gap-toothed smile. He reminds me of myself at that age, wanting so badly to please my dad, who rodeoed in his younger days. I'd look up at him nervously until Pops, in his quiet way, pronounced, "You had a good day, son. Praise the Lord." This little kid beams as I hand back his signed hat, jamming it onto his head and taking off to show it off to his family, no doubt. And just like that, I'm transported in time, because standing at the entrance of the shoot alley is my girlfriend Winnie, just like she did the second time I saw her.
Chapter 4. Winnie. Before, 5 years ago. "This way," my friend Letitia said as I followed her into the rodeo grounds. It had been years since I'd been to the rodeo. When Ivy and I were kids, Mom refused to take us, though sometimes she'd relent and let us go with our friends' families. As a teen, aware more of what the rodeo represented, I didn't go, hardly. I wasn't into horses, and I definitely wasn't into any rodeo cowboys. Mom had drilled into my sister and me to stay well away from them. She was okay with my cowgirl boot obsession. As I grew up, I decided Western wear suited me and started collecting sassy boots. There I was, back at the rodeo with Letitia playing my tour guide, as though I didn't know where the shoot alley was. I also knew that not a ton of extra people were allowed in there. Some unspoken agreement that wives and girlfriends and hangers-on were not to enter, mainly because there wasn't much room for all the cowboys, their gear, and their huge hats, and their egos. I stayed a few steps back. Letitia wanted to wish her brother Boone luck. Letitia had long blonde hair, light as her brother's. He glanced at her, then at me, and in his usual friendly fashion, flashed his megawatt smile. He was 5 years older than Letitia and me, and I could have had the hugest crush on him if it weren't that I kind of considered him like a brother, which made for a big no. Besides, him being a rodeo cowboy and all. Letitia went over to him to talk, and I would have followed, but instead, I was paralyzed where I stood, because a certain tall cowboy was walking into the alley ahead of me. I recognized the broad shoulders and the pants fitting just right on his seat, and the hat that completed the cowboy look. Patrick Brown. He paused to talk to someone, and I panicked in case he saw me. I didn't expect Patrick to look me up or anything after our meeting at the bar, but he'd have scored some points for trying, had he tried. Just so I could have the satisfaction of shutting him down, and I certainly didn't want him to think that I'd been thinking about him this past week since we danced. Just as I was afraid of, with his profile turned to me, my movement must have caught his eye. He turned and saw me, and my heart beat in my chest like a crazed melody. I seized up for one moment, and then I nodded crisply in his direction to put him in his place. Letitia was wrapping up, it sounded like, but I still walked over to her side so that she shielded me from a certain cowboy. I heard his spurs jangling as he came up about 5 feet away. I was still hiding on Letitia's right side, like some kid playing hide and seek, or a baby hiding under a blanket, thinking that no one could see her. "Hi, Letitia," Patrick greeted my friend. Oh, good, he was interested in her, of course. She was gorgeous and friendly and had no hang-ups about rodeo cowboys. "I didn't know you were friends with Winnie," Patrick continued. Boone was watching me this whole time with a suspicious expression before a mischievous glint replaced it. "Winnie and I are dating," he said straight-faced. Letitia turned to me so fast she got whiplash. I smiled back, hoping she'd also pick up on my "I'll talk to you later" vibe. My mind flashed 100 ways to torture her brother, while at the same time, I kinda appreciated his giving me some cover. I decided to peek around Letitia at Patrick. I wanted to see him cut down to size. No longer that brash cowboy who took me by the hand across the dance floor. Maybe he'd fall for Boone's joke. It was hard to tell. His gaze and mine connected, and if Boone and I truly were going out, Patrick looked about ready to cart me off and defy him. "I see," Patrick said, his dimples turning shallow. I realized then that I liked seeing him dimple and his eyes twinkle, neither of which were happening for the moment. And could that be because he was thinking I was taken? "Good luck," Letitia told the boys before turning to me. "Let's go, Winnie. I want to get some nachos before we sit down. I'm starving." Boone looked like he was still trying to stop himself from laughing out loud. "See you later, Winnie." "See you," I told him in my best dating voice, which left me and Patrick standing awkwardly a few feet from each other. I wasn't so churlish as to not offer him a hand. "Good luck." I stuck my hand out and realized I had seen that sexy, disheveled look often on Boone before his bareback rides, but without the effect that Patrick was having on me. Patrick's right long sleeve was pulled up to almost his shoulder, bandage wrapped around his bicep muscles. His right hand was bare, but I knew that it would soon be wrapped in bandage, too, to make it easier to hold onto the saddle handle. His hand wrapped around mine, and I could barely breathe. My skin felt heated against his, especially as our palms slid against each other and settled into a handhold. I kept my eyes downcast, afraid if I looked up I would... "Are you really dating him?" Patrick's voice was low, gravelly. I lifted my eyes to his, and I knew there was no escaping this moment. For one, my hand was in his, and there was no sign of him letting me go until I answered the question. "I don't date rodeo cowboys," I said. Patrick's face relaxed, his dimples deepening. Our hands were still fused together, his thumb caressing the side of my hand. "Good." He let me go, and left me puzzling if, by good, he meant my not dating Boone or not dating cowboys.
Chapter 5. Patrick. Before. 5 years ago, I was crazier, wilder, and braver in some ways. I only had myself to worry about, no girlfriend waiting in the stands to eventually do some reckoning with. But I was also a show-off. I wanted to ride well that night, especially with Winnie, the non-rodeo cowboy dater, watching me. Placing first tasted mighty sweet. Boone came up to me afterward, biting his lip like he had a guilty conscience. "Hey, man," he said. "I was just fooling earlier when I said Winnie and I were dating." "Figured as much," I said. "You like her?" "Yeah." "Good luck. She doesn't date rodeo cowboys." "Did she tell you that because you were interested?" "Nah." Boone waved his hand in the air. "She's my little sister's best friend. That'd be kind of weird anyway, though she is beautiful." "Tell me about it." "A rodeo cowboy can dream," Boone said, chuckling as he moved away. When she had appeared at the end of the alley with Letitia, I hadn't moved to get closer. I didn't want to scare her off, even though I wanted to be near her so badly. I recalled the feel of her hand in mine, that soft skin, and her fragrance that I dreamed about since holding her in my arms on that dance floor. After my win, I noticed she and Letitia were standing with Boone by his gear. I slung my bag strap on my shoulders, taking it slow so that by the time they had finished talking to Boone, I would pass them. "Congratulations," Winnie greeted me as I came abreast. "Thanks." It about killed me to keep walking. It would have been strange for me to angle for conversation right there, with competitors coming and going and the alley filling up with bull riding teams. I was done for the night, and I normally would have just piled into my truck to go get a burger and fries, but I didn't walk too fast, in case she made a mad dash for me. She didn't, so I kept walking to my truck, not looking back to see if she was watching. End of the night, and I was feeling more lonesome than usual. Winning at Bareback had become routine, I realized, and it would have been nice to celebrate my win with someone like Winnie. A rodeo cowboy could dream. I shook my head at the improbability of that. I loaded my gear and bag into the back of the pickup truck and felt in my pocket for my wallet to make sure I had it. I could grab a bite to eat at the rodeo just as well, and who knew, maybe I'd run into a certain redhead again. I looked over at the shoot alley, but Winnie and Letitia weren't there. Tamping down my disappointment, I sauntered warily over to the concessions. I looked over at the taco stand, then at the burger line, where a redhead in sassy turquoise boots stood in line. I hung in the balance for a sec, deliberating. Then I walked right up to her and she did a double take. "Can you claim me as a friend?" I said, lowering my voice. "So I could cut in line? I'm starving." Her mouth twitched, but she didn't say anything, just turned her profile to me and appeared engrossed in the list of offerings above the booth window. I took that as a yes. We moved along with the line until it was our turn. "I'm paying," I told the woman at the register. "Excuse me?" Winnie said, raising an eyebrow. She had green eyes, like a bright moss green or an emerald that was sparkling in the sun. God didn't leave out any of the beautiful details with Winnie. I cleared my throat. I said, "I know." She turned to the vendor. "We're paying separately." She got her mushroom burger with small fries, and I got a double cheeseburger with large fries. We paid separately, though I quipped, I was trying to spend my winnings tonight. If I thought she would be impressed by my reference to my win, she rolled her eyes. "Are you heading back to the stands?" I asked. She hesitated. "Actually, no. I wanted to eat this at the picnic tables. I don't like eating at the bleachers around other people." What a coincidence. Neither do I. She pursed those beautiful lips of hers and gave me this exasperated look. "You're hilarious." "Then why aren't you laughing?" "What? You're going to check my tonsils to see if they're moving?" Her response made me think of junior high, when kids would razz each other about checking out each other's tonsils. That is, kissing. At the thought of kissing her, my chest warmed. She popped a fry in her mouth and chewed, crinkling her nose. Did she realize how adorable she looked? How her beauty drove me crazy? Maybe sitting and being with her wasn't such a good idea. How much torture could a rodeo cowboy like me take? She moved toward the picnic tables. I assumed, since she didn't tell me off, that she didn't mind my company. We sat at one end across from each other, quiet as we both enjoyed our dinner. Winnie cut up everything, even her fries, using her fork to eat it all. I chewed on my food and watched her with fascination, and she caught me staring. "What?" She wiped her mouth with her napkin. "You cut your burger up." She smiled, but there was a hint of challenge in her eyes. "I don't like touching it. It's messy." "Gotcha," I said, as my burger's juices ran down my hand onto the wood table. I licked my fingers and took another bite. After a minute, I asked, "What's your last name?" "Stevens. And you?" "Brown." Her eyes grew wide. "The Browns that own all that land in town?" "I guess so, unless there's another family that goes by that name. How do you know about us?" "I'm a realtor." I pictured her in a red business jacket and pants, tucked into cowgirl boots. "Do you wear cowgirl boots to your appointments?" She looked at me in surprise. "Yes?" That was my guess. I wanted to know everything about her. What made her tick, what she liked to eat, how she ate, what her childhood was like, growing up without her rodeo cowboy dad. Not everyone was a jerk like that, but I'd met my share of sleazebags. She ate with her knife and fork, taking each bite with only the tines touching her teeth. After a few forkfuls, she dabbed her lips with her napkin. I felt like a caveman compared to her, and had to hold myself back from tearing into my burger like one. I got done eating before she did, but she packed that food impressively for such a tiny waist. When she was done, she folded her burger wrap and flattened the crease with her thumb and forefinger. "Done?" I asked, and when she nodded, I picked up our trash and took it to the nearest garbage can. As I returned, I slowed down to simply drink her in as she sat at the picnic table with her back turned to me, her long, flaming red hair going down past her shoulders, her hips in those flattering jeans, and her legs encased in her turquoise boots. I may have taken my time because I knew that once we were both done, she'd go back to the bleachers to sit beside Letitia, and it would be mighty odd if I forced my company on her with Letitia as witness. As I came up, I discovered she was looking at this little circular mirror and putting on fresh lipstick, a warm red that looked good against her skin. In the reflection, she caught me looking, and neither of us moved. After a few heartbeats, she dragged her gaze away, continuing to fill the contour of her lips with that vibrant color. Afterward, she pressed her lips together and flicked those incredible green eyes up at me, all still in the mirror, as though she'd allowed me into some private space where we were all alone. A current traveled through my body, energy that vibrated much like when I was waiting to take a ride on a bronc, scared, excited, eager. I sat back down on the bench across from her, waiting to see where this led us. I knew what I wanted. I wanted to be with her for as long as she would allow me, but she had to call the shots. She put her makeup stuff in her leather tote bag and played with her earring, turquoise, like her boots. Within a few seconds, she looked off to the distance. I followed her gaze. She was looking at the Ferris wheel. "It's still running," she said. I stood and smiled. "Better catch a ride then."
Chapter 6. Winnie. Everything was neat and tidy and uncomplicated, until it wasn't. Patrick rose from the picnic table bench, waiting, so I stood too, slinging my bag strap on the side next to him, in an attempt to keep him at arm's length. I had told him I didn't date rodeo cowboys, but there I was, having eaten dinner with him and heading to the Ferris wheel. I could have told him that the Ferris wheel was my favorite ride, how I liked it lit up during the day, but especially in that transition time between dusk and evening, when the colors turned vibrant in the darkness. But I didn't. "Are you more of a Ferris wheel kind of guy?" I asked, "or a roller coaster?" "Roller coaster, all the way," he said, making my stomach sink a little. Not only was he a rodeo cowboy, he was a roller coaster riding rodeo cowboy. What could I have expected? When he rode broncs bareback. But I like taking girls up a Ferris wheel. My stomach sank a lot more. Girls. In plural. "I mean," he stammered, "I don't just take any girl up the Ferris wheel." I kept to my side, clutching my purse even tighter, ready to whack him over the head if he decided to get fresh, as I was sure he had done with who knew how many other girls. I knew that look, when a guy thought he was falling in love with me, that feverish gaze, longing expression, dreamy smile. What monster had I created? I could have kicked myself. Why had I allowed this to go this far? Why couldn't I have just gone back to the bleachers to sit beside Letitia, who was probably starting to wonder where I was? Why did I even look at the Ferris wheel in an obvious ploy to get him to ride with me? But he was a roller coaster kind of guy. Maybe he would get bored out of his mind and decide I was boring too. End of story. Shortest romance ever. Romance. With a rodeo cowboy. I swallowed my nervousness and clutched my bag tighter. The Ferris wheel operator hardly looked at us, just waited for us to sit in the basket before latching the guard with a clang. We rocked side by side, my purse between us, as the Ferris wheel turned, sending us up part way, then stopping as the operator led other couples on. The wheel moved once again, revealing, in the basket ahead of us, a couple who was making out as though they were alone. Great. I looked off to the side, my cheeks heating up. Forward, then to the side again. Beside me, Patrick was quiet. I turned my head and took a peek at him. His eyes met mine, and then we both burst out laughing.
Chapter 7. Patrick. What was up with that huge purse of hers, sticking out between us? It was like a leather version of the Great Wall of China, and I was starting to suspect she placed it there on purpose. The awkwardness of the other couple went away, and I tried to enjoy our ride together, even though the purse was giving me fits. Not that I would have tried to put my arm around her, though I thought about it. At the least, I had hoped my hand would brush against hers. "Wow," she said. I followed Winnie's gaze, and she was looking up at the moonless sky, at the million pinpricks of stars. "Isn't it beautiful?" she asked. I studied her profile and said, "Yes." She caught me looking and blushed. "Stop." "What?" "Staring at me." I tried to stare less conspicuously. The Ferris wheel stopped and we were on top of the world. Our basket swung slightly until it was still. Vehicles left little streaks of neon lights as they moved down the highway. The little town of Sunny Ridge was a mixture of darkness and some light. I've always thought Sunny Ridge felt like prison, I confessed. Couldn't get anywhere or do anything without my folks finding out.
I felt the same way when we moved here. This was smaller than where we'd lived before.
Which was?
Northern Utah, a town called Cattail Creek.
Never heard of it.
Most people haven't.
My chest felt like it was about to burst with a good feeling I hadn't felt in a long time, if ever, with a girl. I debated whether to tell her or not, then plunged headlong, just as I had done most of my life. You know how I said it felt like prison?
Yes?
She turned to watch me. I don't feel like that as much, especially... I couldn't go on. I knew it would sound stupid. But she said,
What?
Especially since I finally found what I've been looking for. She was quiet, her eyes bright and attentive. Her voice was barely above a whisper.
And what is that?
I looked deep in her eyes. You? Winnie lowered her eyes and turned frontward, away from me. I blew it. I knew. She didn't date rodeo cowboys. She'd said as much. We would finish out the rest of the ride and she would flounce off, never giving me the time of day. I'd pushed her too much.
Patrick,
she began. Listen, I know you don't date rodeo cowboys, and I'm one, but I swear, I'm not like some guys who have a girlfriend at every stop. I still have Sunday dinner with my family, and my mom sometimes darns my socks. I paused. Wait, strike that. She giggled. I did that. I made her laugh. I took that as a promising sign. My motor mouth wouldn't quit. I just know that I can't let you go tonight without knowing if I have a chance at being your friend.
Even if it leads nowhere?
I chewed on this for a minute. Even if it leads nowhere. She smiled. You're a masochist. I just want to be with you, be around you, see you laugh, listen to your stories, watch you eat a burger with a fork and knife.
You're teasing me.
I am. We laughed. The Ferris wheel stopped again. So, you think we could be friends? I asked. Her answer came so soft I had to strain to hear.
No.
I slumped and adjusted my cowboy hat. My chest felt tight, like it had love to give, but it had to be contained. I nodded. Sure. Okay.
Patrick.
I looked at her, trying to not let on that I was all cut up inside.
I think I want to be more than friends.
You... what? She nodded.
We'll have to go slow, of course. We could go on a date or two and see how it goes.
I smiled and bit my lip, taking frequent peeks at her glowing face, matching the happiness I felt inside. Of course. You call the shots. She nodded.
You bet I will.
Below us, the operator was opening and shutting latches. Winnie had said we could be more than friends. Could that mean she would let me kiss her? No time like the present. I shifted my body so it faced her more and looked into her eyes. I reached up and pushed her hair away from her cheek, tracing her soft skin with the tips of my fingers. She drew a quick intake of breath, her eyes falling to my mouth. Her eyes fluttered shut, and I leaned in for a kiss, only to be deterred by her purse. In a fit of impatience, I pulled it aside and scooted close to her, eager to claim a kiss. Thunk. We both looked down at our feet, at her purse that had tumbled off the seat onto the narrow floor and was now hurtling several feet under us onto the heads of another couple. The kiss, unfortunately, would have to wait. We talked as I drove her home in my truck. She told me about vacations the past year in the Caribbean and Mexico, both sponsored by her work. "You must be real good at what you do," I said, and she just smiled like she knew her worth. I told her about our ranch, how I was the oldest of 6 brothers, but sometimes it felt like I was running a zoo. She laughed, the sound of which I was starting to think was the prettiest music in the world. I walked her to her door, careful not to touch her, while at the same time craving to do so. But I would be patient. She paused at the door, said goodbye, then slipped quickly inside. Well, okay then. Tamping down my disappointment, I shoved my hands in my jean pockets and made my way down the sidewalk. The door opened once again and I turned. For a few heartbeats, we simply stared at each other. She walked slowly up to me, that funny purse no longer hanging by the strap on her shoulder. She stopped an arm's length away. "You forgot something." Her gaze fell to my mouth. I swallowed, then lowered my eyes to her lips. Reaching up, I cradled her smooth cheek. So soft, so warm. I took a step and closed the distance between us. I was going to be patient. Start with soft little kisses. Watch her reaction, then take her in my arms. Not sure who moved first, but we fell into a tight embrace, both of us leaning and kissing, a heat raging like a wildfire between us. There was no hesitation, no halfway. I coaxed her closer by the small of her back, and she raked her fingers through my hair as she pulled my head down, her lips parting so we could deepen the kiss. I knew right then that regardless of what happened between us, she would be seared in my consciousness for the rest of my life. We kissed for a long time, surfacing once in a while only to be drawn back into a pleasurable dream. And then she was stepping back, putting her fingers to her lips and giving me a crooked smile. "Good night," she said. "Good night." After the door closed on her, I stood there for a while, a stupid grin on my face. Chapter 8. Patrick. Present day. After my win, I make my way down the shoot alley to the truck. I'd arranged earlier to meet Winnie at the bleachers, and then we'd go down to grab a burger like that first time. A group of young cowboys in hats and cowboy boots meet me with a couple of grown-ups. I stop as I usually do, not just signing, but also asking them questions, telling them to stay in school. All that stuff that my parents used to tell me, except I didn't always follow their teachings to a T. After the boys comes a trio of older teen girls. They all have long blonde hair and are giggly as could be. They flirt outrageously, asking me to sign the backside of their jeans. I rub my nape and wince. "I'm afraid I'll have to pass. How about signing your hats instead?" "Oh, come on." One of them tries to sweet-talk me, offering the aforementioned body part. I'm sure my face is turning red. I glance up, and standing at the end of Shoot Alley is Winnie, tight-lipped with arms folded across her chest. "If you'll excuse me, girls," I say, and they pout but let me go. "Thanks for your support." Winnie and I buy burgers to go and drive home in silence, neither of us touching our food. I'm exhausted from my bareback ride, but managed to stay awake at the wheel thanks to Dr. Pepper.
"Mom invited us to dinner on Thanksgiving,"
she says. I rub my eyes. "Okay."
"Okay?"
She shoots me a sharp glance. I raise an eyebrow. I said okay.
"It wasn't your choice of wording," she says. "It was your tone."
"Let's not kid around, Winnie. Your mom doesn't like me."
"She's warming to the idea,"
she retorts. After 5 years, she'd better.
"Patrick."
I massage my jaw. "I'd love to go to her house for Thanksgiving." I pause. "Is that better?" She doesn't answer, so obviously it isn't. I look away from the road and then glance at her. "What's the real problem, babe?" My eyes return to the road. I can see from the corner of my eye that she's smoothing her jeans, like when she's nervous.
You told me this would be your last rodeo.
Ah, so that's what this is all about. I did.
Then why did Boone tell me that you and he are signed up for the Bancroft Rodeo?
You know how Boone is, a jokester. Her expression is stony.
He was serious. He's telling the truth, isn't he?
I grip the steering wheel. Yes.
Why didn't you tell me sooner?
I wanted to see how I did here today. It's not like I was already set to do it. She turns her head so I can't see her profile.
I'm sorry, Patrick, but I can't take it anymore.
My heart races. Take what anymore?
You're being on the road all the time, when we should be...
My voice rises. What? She shakes her head.
I think we should take some time off. You go on to Bancroft. I'm going to go home and visit Mom.
Her mom lives a good 2 hours away. For how long?
Until I'm good and ready to come back.
We arrive at my ranch, drive the length of the asphalt to the house, and she gets out right away. I exit the driver's side and catch up with her, grabbing her arm. Babe, listen to me. She keeps her face averted. I promise this will be my last run. Her eyes fill with hurt.
That's what you said last year.
I expel a breath. You're right, I did. I didn't expect to do so well in this category. I'm breaking records as one of the oldest riders in his 40s.
Congratulations.
Her mouth twists and she tries to push past me.
Winnie, don't leave like this. Let's talk, please.
Her eyes are pools of exhaustion.
It's too late, Patrick. I've already made up my mind. We need the time apart.
I blow out a frustrated breath. You mean you need the time apart? She juts out her chin.
Does it really matter who needs it?
Her boots crunch loudly on the gravel as she walks over to where she's parked her car. I stuff my hands in my pockets and watch her back up and drive out of my driveway. My fist clenches around an object in my pocket. I take it out and flip it open. In a slit on a velvet bed sits a beautiful solitaire diamond ring, an engagement ring. I have been planning for days to propose. I was going to wait to do it the next day at the Brown Sunday dinner at Pop's house, but now I picture her other times, looking disappointed at my jewelry gifts. What she doesn't realize is I've been waiting to propose until I feel like she's finally getting the good man she deserves, the very opposite of the father who abandoned her. I'll give her some space, a few days, and then, when both of us have had a chance to cool off, I'll go to her and get down on one knee, because the thought of not having her in my life scares the tar out of me.
Chapter 9. Winnie. I slide into the driver's seat of my car and drive away until I'm alongside the deserted city park. I pull over for a minute and take a few deep breaths. I did it. I drove Patrick away. Before he leaves me. That has been my plan all along. For the longest time, I told him that we shouldn't marry, that we're fine dating the way we have been, no commitments to break, no marriage to nurture, and he'd seemed perfectly fine with it. And so I started thinking maybe what I really want is marriage. But he hasn't proposed. I kept expecting him to be like my dad, popular rodeo star by day, alcoholic and womanizer by night. Him leaving the family was the worst and best day of my mom's life, mine and my sister's too, for that matter. When I see Patrick with female fans, all sorts of paranoid thoughts run through my mind, and I hate it. I have a hard time trusting him, though I don't want to admit it. To Patrick's credit, he isn't any of that, but still, it's just a matter of time before our relationship doesn't work out. No marriages work out in the end. Some people choose to stay married, but they're far from perfect. They have to tolerate each other's idiosyncrasies. I shake as I sit in my car thinking, I did it. I tested him, and he failed. He didn't run after me, just let me go without a fight. If he really loved me... I swallowed the sob that threatens its way out of my throat. I have a lot to do. Packing, for one, so I can make the drive to Mom's. She doesn't know yet what I'm about to do. I figure I would go to her place and explain once I get there. Taking a deep breath, I start up the car again and pull out onto the road. I'm clear-eyed, a little shook, but otherwise, I'm okay. I don't need Patrick. Or any man, for that matter. Chapter 10. Minerva. Minerva Clausing, age 85, stands at her porch, enjoying the late August summer breeze. It's been a while since she's been feeling good enough to dress for the store, let alone leave her house. But she really needs pickles, the bread and butter kind, not dill like her son Tim likes, which is what he got for her the other day when he offered to make a store run for her. Minerva likes to eat them by themselves on her TV tray, watching sweet, romantic movies. Even in her 80s, or maybe because she is in her 80s, she believes in true love and romance. If romance were to disappear from life, then we as a human race are doomed. She's stiff in her joints today, like a machine that's not been oiled. Walking hurts. Determined to get her pickles, she shuffles forward, down the porch step, and onto the next. Weeds are threatening to take over her yard, and she fusses about a dandelion that's managed to pop up. That persistent weed. She'll have to talk to the handyman Tim's hired and ask that he be more careful next time. Minerva peers in the driver's side window and sees, to her relief, that her key is in the ignition. She couldn't find it on the key rack by the door, and this explains it. There were other keys hanging off the keychain, but this is the only one that matters for the moment. She pulls on the driver's side handle, and just opening it causes her to have shortness of breath. She jams herself in between the opening in case the door decides to bounce back, and waits until her heart calms again. My, how hot the interior is. She must remember to put up the shade when she's done. Scooting her hip to the side, she plops down on the vinyl driver's seat. Her hip aches from the effort. She used to be so spry, but today she is feeling her age. What she would give to dance again with her Earl. Sliding the handle of her bag off her arm, she sets her bag on the passenger seat. When she faces forward again, her mind goes blank. Now, why was she sitting in this car? And where is Earl? Shouldn't he be driving? And then she remembers. She's going to the store. Earl left this earth some 20 years ago, and she needs something. What was it? Think, Minerva. Pickles! Ah, yes. She roots through her bag to make sure she has her wallet, and there it is. Her wallet does not have her driver's license. Tim took it from her when she turned 80, some birthday that was, because she was a hazard on the road. A driver's license won't a better driver make. She starts the engine. It rumbles with hesitation, but roars when she pumps the gas a little. Leaning forward, she taps the dashboard. A quarter tank of gas, plenty for her to get to Main Street Market. She summons the strength to close her door and backs out the driveway. A little crooked, but it's been a while since she's been out. She hears a crunch and looks over her shoulder where the Grant's mailbox across the street used to be. Oops! Minerva drives down the street and tries to remember whether to turn right or left. Which is it? And why are there other cars on the road? Don't they know how distracting they can be? She approaches a stop sign. She knows she's supposed to stop, so she presses on the brakes. But the car's not stopping. Something must be wrong with her vehicle. Why isn't it stopping? Oh, of course, she mutters with a chuckle. That was the gas pedal. This here is the brake pedal. She steps on it, and the car slows down accordingly. But it's not quick to respond, and she goes through the stop sign right into the path of another car, which does not stop. She sees the other driver, almost eerily, looking straight at her, her mouth gaping open. Her hair is the kind of red Minerva had wished for when she was younger. Flaming red. At impact, Minerva closes her eyes and hears the crashing of metal on metal, plus a little pop as the impact sends the hood of her car flipping back toward her. Oops. Chapter 11. Winnie. Approaching a four-way stop, I realize that my rearview mirror is crooked. I adjust it as I coast to a stop. A car with an elderly lady driver approaches from the opposite side. I'm clear to go, so I do. But the car with the elderly lady driver isn't stopping. In fact, she's accelerating and heading straight at me. I swerve so that we don't collide head-on. But belatedly, I realize she's headed straight for my driver's side. I'm at a crawl, but the other car is gunning it, slamming metal into my side as my airbag deploys. That's the last I remember before darkness takes over.
Chapter 12. Patrick. I take the hospital's front steps 2 or 3 at a time and push my way through a revolving door which spits me out to the reception area. I've been to this hospital a few times with broken bones over the years, but I'm never in a hurry as I am today. Winnie is hurt.
She's alive, her mom told me over the phone, but she's unconscious. Lord, let her live. If you do, I'll shape up, I promise. I'll make an honest woman of her, if she'll have me. I'll even consider giving up Rodeo. Who cares about all that? I just want Winnie well. I approach the white-haired receptionist. Winnie Stevens, please. She smiles at me, and I wait with my hands at my hips, ready to bolt, as she looks at a computer.
Room 116. It's down this hall on the right.
But I'm already booking it. I pass a man and a woman in blue scrubs who eye me curiously before letting me pass them, a woman pushing a tray of meds, and finally, I arrive at the 110s. 14, 15, 16. 𝗵𝗽𝗶𝗵𝗆, Winnie's mom, is standing over Winnie, who's in bed, an IV tube connected to her hand. Ivy, Winnie's younger sister, is sitting on an oversized chair by the window looking up at me. Her lips move, probably telling her mom about me being there, and 𝗵𝗽𝗆 turns toward me. 𝗵𝗽𝗆 beckons for me to come. I appreciate that right at this moment. She's being civil. She's never made a secret that she doesn't want her daughter dating a rodeo cowboy like me. In fact, there's a family friend, Gilbert, whom she would probably love for Winnie to date if I hadn't entered the picture. Well, what do you know? Gilbert is sitting in the room too. He's sitting in a chair by the window, and I hadn't seen him at first because where 𝗵𝗽𝗆 was standing, she had been shielding him from my view. I come into the room, straight to Winnie's bedside. I know I should acknowledge Winnie's family, but I only have eyes for my sweetheart. Her head is wrapped with bandage, and her eyes, which are closed, are black and blue. Her skin is pale. Baby, I whimper.
Now,
𝗵𝗽𝗆 says in her capable, no-nonsense voice.
she's gonna be okay. The doctor was just here, and he says she suffered a concussion and black eyes, but otherwise, there's no broken bones. Well, I guess she might have a cracked rib or two. Once the swelling is down, they can do an x-ray.
I nod, only half hearing what she said. What happened?
An elderly lady with an expired license ran through the stop sign near your place.
Frustration laces 𝗵𝗽𝗆's voice.
Pickles. She was getting pickles, of all things. She could have killed Winnie over stupid pickles.
Mom, Ivy says from the corner. With her short blonde haircut, Ivy looks more like her mom than Winnie does. Winnie told me once that she got her red hair and temper from her dad.
Hi, Patrick.
I nod at her and give Gilbert a quick glance. What is he doing here? Gilbert looks every bit the accountant he is. He has these glasses that I bet make him feel smart, a clean-shaven face and a polo shirt tucked in slacks. I once asked Winnie what she thought of him, and she said, he's cute but too nerdy for me. And all I could think of was that she thought he was cute.
Hi,
Gilbert says. I nod coolly. He and I don't need to be all pal-like just because Winnie's hurt. What is he even doing here?
He offered to give us a ride because Mom was agitated,
Ivy says, as though she can read my mind.
I was perfectly fine, 𝗵𝗽𝗆 protests. But it was sweet of Gilbert to give us a ride. It gave me a chance to call everyone about Winnie.
I take Winnie's hand in mine, careful not to tug on the IV tubing. Baby, I'm here. Winnie's eyes remain shut.
Here,
𝗵𝗽 says, pushing a chair under me.
have a seat.
She looks at Gilbert and Ivy.
Maybe we can grab a bite to eat now that Patrick is here. You don't mind if we go, do you?
She asks me. I almost want to laugh at the absurdity of her question. It's mostly awkwardness between me and Winnie's family, and I do want to be with Winnie. Go ahead and go.
We'll be right back.
They all file out, leaving Winnie and me alone with the beeping and blinking machines. Baby, I say as I hold her hand. I came as soon as I could, and I'm sorry. I should have told you about what I had planned. Maybe instead of you driving off mad at me, we'd be engaged by now and you wouldn't have been at that intersection at that time. I take the velvet box from my pocket and open it. The diamond solitaire sparkles, taunting me. Why had I not gone ahead and proposed to her when I could have? I'm about to snap the box shut when a thought comes over me. Sometimes my brothers tease me that my thoughts are half-baked and all, but in this case, I just have to see for myself. I take the ring out of the box and slide it over Winnie's ring finger. Just looking at it fills me with peace. When you wake up, baby, this ring will be yours if you want it. The beeping punctuates my concern for her. I push her hair away from her face, remembering that first time we kissed. The first time we held hands walking down Main Street to the ice cream shop. The first time we shared our dreams as we looked out over the lake at Leonard's Pass.
Oh my wow, Patrick!
I turn to see Ivy in the doorway, covering her mouth with her hands.
Are you and Winnie engaged?
I stand so fast I nearly knock the chair over backward. Ivy doesn't really wait for a response from me, but instead comes over to admire the ring.
It's beautiful.
Ivy.
Let me get Mom.
Before I can stop her, Ivy is running out to the hall. Great, I mutter under my breath. I need to clear this up. If Winnie were to wake up to this commotion, she'd probably kick me out of the hospital room and out of her life. But Ivy is fast, and 𝗵𝗽 is soon trailing after her.
What's this about you and Winnie getting engaged?
Her expression is shocked, disturbed, and not for the first time I can tell by the suspicious glance she trains on me. She's thinking that Winnie is making a big mistake. Did she not tell you? I ask, thinking of Winnie driving to see 𝗵𝗽, breaking the news that Winnie and I were breaking up.
That you're engaged? No.
She leans over and inspects the ring.
It's pretty,
she says grudgingly. I open my mouth to set the record straight, but Gilbert is listening behind 𝗵𝗽. I don't like him crowing about my breakup with Winnie, and maybe, just maybe, I want him to back off so I don't correct anyone. There's plenty enough time for explanations. It's so easy to read Gilbert. His mouth droops on either side. He's obviously disappointed that Winnie is finally officially off the shelf. If only it were true.
How did you propose?
𝗵𝗽 asks me. Well, I am about to say I actually haven't yet, but Ivy jumps in.
Probably on a horse, knowing Patrick. You'd taken her on a trail ride and you went up to the overlook at Leonard's Pass, right?
No.
Oh, wait, I know. You were at the county fair rodeo and you took her up the Ferris wheel and popped the question while riding it? Winnie told me about how you two met the second time.
Not exactly.
How did you propose?
𝗵𝗽's eyebrows are knit together. I'm all ready to set the record straight. I wish Ivy's words were true. I wish that when Winnie wakes up, it would be a question of not if she would marry me, but when. The machines beside Winnie beep a bit wildly, nearly giving me a heart attack and sending her mom into a panic, wanting to go out to the hall to call in the nurse. 𝗵𝗽 goes out, motioning for Ivy to follow her. Gilbert rushes after them, leaving me with Winnie. I look down, and Winnie's eyes are open. Baby, I say, smiling. Winnie. She blinks a couple of times, those green eyes that I could not tire of, and watches me with curiosity. I want to show you something. I lift her hand so the ring on her finger crosses her vision. She studies it without emotion. She's keeping it cool, that's good to see. Maybe she's forgiven me. She opens her mouth, but her voice cracks. She pats her throat and looks around. Are you thirsty? When she nods, I pour her a paper cup of water from a pitcher on the side table and give it to her. Occasionally, she watches me from the rim of the cup. I don't want to rush her, especially since there are voices coming from the hallway. Winnie sets down her drink and clears her throat. Then she raises her eyes to mine once again. Who are you?
Chapter 13. Winnie. Chaos erupts at my question, which I consider perfectly reasonable. Because I do not know any of these people looking down on me in my hospital bed, a middle-aged blonde woman gasps, covering her mouth with a manicured hand. Her blood-red nails contrast with her pale skin. Winnie, hon, do you not recognize me? No, should I? The woman wails, a high-pitched keening. Beside her, a younger woman who looks just like her, except with a longer haircut, props her up by the elbow. I return my gaze to the man whom I first saw when I opened my eyes. He looks older, with that gray around his temples, but his face isn't craggy with age, just a few laugh lines. He dressed like a cowboy, a long-sleeved blue denim shirt that complements the blue-gray of his eyes, a huge belt buckle, and fitted jeans. Atop his head is a cream straw hat that he's adjusting back and forth like a nervous habit. No one is telling me anything, even though my head is bursting with questions. I start with, why am I in a hospital bed? The cowboy looks to the two women. The older one blinks. She says, you were in a car accident. Do you remember? I try to conjure up memories, but nothing pulls up. I shake my head. A nurse who has been standing nearby says she is getting the doctor. The older woman is taking deep breaths. I'm your mom, Winnie, and this is your sister, Ivy. My name is Winnie? Mom nods. Winnie Stevens. I gaze expectantly at the cowboy. The two women are looking at him, and he's simply staring into my eyes. His Adam's apple bobs up and down, which draws my eyes to the tan skin showing in the V of his shirt and his broad shoulders. I'm Patrick, he says, his voice deep and husky. The sound makes me shiver. Your fiancé, my sister says. Ivy reaches over and lifts my hand. A beautiful diamond ring sparkles under the hospital lights. See? My eyes return to Patrick. I'm engaged? To him? I study him again. He's not the sort of person one forgets. But my mind draws a blank. I cannot remember anything about him or about an engagement. His eyes are kind, though. Despite the fact that my mind holds no memories of him or us, he doesn't make me feel unsafe. When were you going to get married? Mom asks Patrick. Patrick looks at me, then at her. We hadn't decided. Of course, marrying now, while she's lost her memory, is out of the question. Mom's voice turns sharp, like there is something ominous behind her words. Naturally, Patrick says. We can wait. I clutch at my sheet, my throat tightening. I'm engaged to this attractive stranger? He and I are supposed to get married. Maybe not right away, but sometime. Look, Mom says, we've upset her. Someone clears his throat, and I look over to a man whom I now notice standing behind the women. He's wearing glasses in thin frames and looks bookish in his dress shirt and slacks. I'm Gilbert. I wait for more explanation, and finally Mom says, he's a good friend of yours. Patrick reacts to this visibly. His jaw clenches, and I notice up close that he has stubble and a small scar over his top lip. Our eyes meet, and his expression lightens, like he's pleased I'm looking at him instead of my friend, Gilbert. A doctor comes in, and he conducts a series of tests, checking my hand-eye coordination, asking me questions I can't answer. By the end of it, my head hurts. I'll have to call your dad, I suppose, Mom says, to let him know of your condition. Dad? I say. Mom nods. We've been divorced for a long time, but I still let him know when you get pretty sick. I'd say this qualifies. I remember, Dad. Everyone stares at me as memories flood my mind. He rides rodeo. Bulls. He's very good, got a champion buckle one year. He let me carry it. Mom sucks in her breath, her eyes brimming with tears. Hurt. That's clear back when she was 8. Patrick stares at me like he's seen a ghost. Any other memories? The doctor prompts. I focus, but nothing else comes. No, just that. Oh, wait. Yes, there's something. I'm at the fair, and Dad takes me up the Ferris wheel. I'm eating cotton candy. Same year, Mom says. That's just like your dad. She sniffles. He's been out of our lives forever, and yet she remembers him. Luckily, this isn't a contest, Mrs. Stevens, the doctor says. Based on my exam of her, we'll keep her under observation today. If things continue to be stable, she should be able to go home tomorrow. I would advise your family to let Winnie take it easy the next few days, and then we'll have her rechecked. Well, what about her memories? Mom asks. It's best if you don't coach her, asking her if she remembers something. You might unwittingly harm her pool of memories. She will come to remember things as her brain heals. But we can tell her about ourselves, yes? Yes. That will give her a measure of security. Otherwise, she will feel like she's among strangers, not able to trust anyone. If you've got any bad blood between you, it's your chance to bury the hatchet. He laughs, but no one else does. She works as a realtor, Patrick says. Will she not be able to do any of that, too? I imagine she should be able to. The doctor clicks his pen shut and puts it in his lab coat's front pocket. I wish I could tell you that this is just temporary and for how long, but it's hard to predict. I sell houses. My dad is a rodeo bull rider. My parents are divorced, and I'm engaged to a silver fox of a cowboy.
Chapter 14. Patrick. I should have said something right then, when Ivy first said Winnie and I were engaged. I had another chance when Ivy jumped in and told Winnie that we're engaged. It's a big, crazy lie, the kind that Mom, may her soul rest in peace, would say I could burn in hell for, because nothing could be further from the truth. Before the accident, Winnie was going to her mom's and she'd broken up with me. The memory of her cutting words still hurts, a gaping wound that leaves me breathless with pain. But love makes you do the weirdest things. Instead of denying we were engaged, I went along with it, because I want Winnie back. I want to spend the rest of my life with her. And if I had said we weren't engaged, Gilbert would have gladly taken my place, aided by Winnie's mom. This way, too, I can court her all over again. Surely, if she'd fallen in love with me before, she would do so again. So instead, here I am, driving Winnie to her house the next day. I have her all to myself because Ivy, bless her heart, suggested that she and her mom go earlier to Winnie's to get it all ready, stock her pantry, that kind of thing. In the passenger seat beside me, Winnie watches the passing landscape out the window. She's uncharacteristically quiet. No sass from her, no sarcasm. It's actually kind of nice, where we're not squabbling like we had been in recent months, since I gave her that necklace at Christmas. At the same time, I miss her. It's funny how I could be physically right next to her and yet feel like she's miles away from me. I slow down at the curb, turn into Winnie's driveway, and park. Winnie's eyes are huge and take everything in, the turn-of-the-century style roof and gables, the white paint on hardy board that I'd helped her paint last year, the swing on the front porch. "That's a cute house," she says. "You remodeled it." Her eyes widen, and I feel sorry for her. How would it be like to lose your memory and not know much of anything about how your life had been? I park behind her sister's green Subaru and help Winnie out of my truck. She puts her hand in mine, tentatively. As we touch, I have to resist the urge to pull her into my arms to welcome her home, to assure her that she's loved, and to promise that I will stick around to support her. I let her go and she walks around me while I grab her bag of belongings from the hospital. We get in the house and it smells like pie. I put my nose in the air. Apple. Winnie is watching me. Apple's one of your favorites, I explain. She nods, then walks around, stopping once in a while to look at things. She touches, admires art, picks things up, and then she puts her hand to her head. It's no longer bandaged, so a purple goose egg on her temple is visible, her hair bound in a messy bun. Her black eyes have faded to a hint of purple. Despite all that, she's still beautiful. 𝗵𝗽𝗶𝗵𝗆 pokes her head out of the kitchen.
Oh, there you are. Funny, you hardly have anything in your pantry. Were you planning to take a trip or something?
I glance with worry at Winnie, but she only smiles politely.
Anyway, 𝗵𝗽𝗶𝗵𝗆 says, we're almost done here. I'll be there soon.
Winnie opens a closet in the hallway and simply stares. Curious, I walk over to stand behind her. The closet is crammed with cowgirl boots. She turns to me slowly and gives me this incredible smile, like she remembers.
Chapter 15. Winnie. I don't remember the boots, but I somehow feel connected to them. I can see myself wearing each pair for a certain occasion. I count them. There are 12 pairs in there. 12 pairs? You're a little obsessed with them, Patrick says, leaning casually against the wall. I can't help but notice how attractive my fiancé is. What do? I tease. Wear a pair for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? I've mostly noticed the turquoise and red ones. I look over at him. His blue eyes gaze into mine, and his voice is lowered, like he's telling me something intimate. Breakfast, Mom calls out. Stepping into my own kitchen, I feel strange in it. I should know where things are, but I can't remember. It's as if someone came through and wiped the slate clean. The table is set for 4, so I take my seat at the one closest to the door. Mom is in her element, flipping pancakes and fishing out bacon from a greasy pan. She puts a pancake and 3 pieces of bacon on a plate and sets it in front of me. I stare at it, questioning even the simplest of decisions. Did I like this for breakfast? Go on, Mom says. It's your favorite from when you were a kid. But was it my favorite as an adult? I'm feeling around, lost, and turn to Patrick for confirmation. He had been standing behind a chair, and he slides in it now. He reaches for my fork and knife, cutting the pancake up in little pieces. What are you doing? I ask, mystified. Cutting it up like you like to do with your food. He spears a bite into an offering. My cheeks burn. His gesture would probably be normal for an engaged couple, but to me, he's still a stranger. It seems rude to refuse it, though. I push back my hair on either side of my face to make sure it doesn't get pancake syrup on it and take the bite. Patrick is watching me this whole time, as are my mom and sister. His eyes drop to my mouth and a tug of electricity buzzes through me. It's delicious, I tell Mom. Mom beams and dishes up serving plates of food, letting everyone else help themselves. Patrick piles 3 pancakes, a fistful of bacon slices, and drizzles a generous amount of syrup all over it. He catches me watching him, and he winks. It's just a little wink, but heavens, what is wrong with me? I turn to my plate, mortified that I am reduced to a girl crushing on this cowboy, who happens to be the man I'm going to marry. Ivy and I need to go back to work tomorrow, Mom says, but I can extend my leave if you need me to. No need, Patrick drawls. I'm off for a while to the next gig. I can do ranch work early in the morning and can be available after that. He looks at me. I'm here for you, Winnie. It's not fair the way he's looking at me, earnest and all, plus his choice of words. Gig? I ask. He chews his mouthful and takes his time to answer. Rodeo. I ride bareback bronc. I picture the sport in my mind. The knowledge is there. Small hand-hold strap that wraps and cinches round a horse's belly. The rider moving with the horse as it kicks and crow hops. But that's it. There are no memories associated with it. I'll be practicing tomorrow, he says, if you'd like to watch. All right. Mom and Ivy exchange glances. I catch expressions of surprise, disbelief. Mom says, "You don't remember anything, do you?" Very faint impressions, but no specific memories. Mom's brow furrows with worry. Will you be going back to work? I don't even remember what I used to do as a realtor. Maybe you should go and have a chat with your office about this. Take a sick leave until you're feeling yourself again, Mom says. Maybe. My voice is soft, resigned. It's exhausting going through these scenarios. Work I don't remember, family I don't recognize, a fiancé who rodeos. I woke up one day, and all my life's been erased. I slump in exhaustion in my chair after Mom and Ivy leave. It actually feels good, restful, to not have so many people around. Patrick rises and clears my plate with his. I'll do dishes. I should milk my condition as much as I can, I joke. You can do dishes the rest of our lives. He stops in his tracks, his back to me, and then walks the rest of the way to the kitchen sink. He sets the plates down, then turns so he's leaning against the sink. He's a tall man with an imposing aura. When we marry, I can. My heart pounds and my palms sweat. When we marry. I stand unsteadily, prepared to run to my bedroom or anywhere just to get away from this awkwardness. Sorry. His apology keeps me rooted. He pushes back from the sink and walks up to me without touching. But as close as he is, I can feel the heat from his body. Does that thought overwhelm you? Yes. I raise my eyes to his. The blue makes me think of the sky in the summer, bright and breathtaking. I've been waiting for you all my life, but I can wait some more. Thanks. To my embarrassment, a tear rolls down my cheek. I feel so lost. Baby, he says. The endearment is at once familiar and strange. He hesitates as though wanting my permission to come closer, to touch me. I don't know who this person is. I don't know a lot about him, but he feels like home. I don't move away. I let him bridge the gap between us and cradle my face with his large hand, wiping the trail of my tear with his thumb. His mouth is inches from mine, his breath warm on my face. His kiss is gentle, brushing against my lips, sweet from syrup. The spark turns into a flame. His gaze turns hungry. I want him to kiss me, and yet I'm afraid. The moment passes, and he pulls me so my cheek is against his broad chest, safe and warm, and I burrow in his arms with gratitude.
Chapter 16. Patrick. I wake up in love. I had been in love with Winnie before, but her current mixture of innocence and fire consumes me. As I do ranch chores, she burns bright through my thoughts. I relive the moment of our last kiss, tender and sweet. How I wanted to kiss her as we have in the past, passionate and demanding surrender. Meantime, I am nervous about Winnie coming to watch me practice today. Will she grumble as she has in the past? Will she laugh and tell me I'm crazy? I won't be practicing on a bucking bronc, but close, on a stationary one and on my trusty horse, Bo. As arranged, I pick her up after lunch. She opens the door and my jaw drops to the floor. She's wearing a white long-sleeved prairie dress that comes to her knees. The light color looks striking against her fiery red hair down around her shoulders. On her feet are a pair of red cowgirl boots. "Where's your hat?" I tease. She blinks.
Do I need one?
I don't care either way. I don't care about anything else at this moment than being with her. I swear she's the most beautiful woman in the world. I reach over and rub the fabric of her skirt between my fingers. "Did you get you a new dress?" She looks at my fingers holding the fabric, then at me, her color heightening. My breath hitches in my throat. Is she remembering our kiss yesterday?
No.
She shakes her head.
This was in my closet. I own a lot of clothes.
We'll be around horses today. You don't care if it gets dirty, do you? She thinks for a minute.
I don't care.
I can wash my dress if I need to.
I don't remind her how stains from being around horses seem to cling to your clothes no matter what. I help her into my truck, like old times. Unlike old times, she's quiet, content to observe. This new Winnie is restful. The old one was like a hot brand, sometimes too hot to handle. She brought color into my life, but we also often butted heads. I drive down to my ranch house, one of several built on the acreage like my younger brother's. I kill the engine, then impulsively lift her hand and kiss the back of it. She looks surprised and pleased at the romantic gesture, but I'm careful to not push my luck. I let go and get out to help her. I touch her every chance I get. Help her out of the truck, guide her on the small of her back, brush my long sleeve against her arm. When she asks me about the ranch, I lean close to answer her, right against her ear. She gives me a sideways glance, intrigue and attraction playing across her face. In the past, whenever we attended family gatherings, there were moments when Winnie and I would exchange glances and slip away to the back of Pop's house. I would pull her to me while she pretended to push me away, protesting the others might hear, or worse, see. But she'd meet my kiss, eager, the others forgotten and inconsequential. Her arms would cling around my neck, and we would discover that by then we were desperate and starving. I would guide her to the back wall of Pop's house, and we'd kiss some more, her fingers caressing the base of my shorn hair, my hands traveling over her waist or her arched back. I push away these memories and continue to lead her down to the barn, where all my practice gear is at. I have a fake horse, which I practice my leg exercises on. I realize belatedly that no one has really seen me do these drills except for my brothers, who also did rodeo sometime or another. Is this such a good idea? This isn't like the rodeo, of course, I say self-consciously. Not as exciting. Of course, she echoes. We enter the barn, the doors creaking. This barn is simply for storing ranching and rodeo gear, tack for the horses, and various odds and ends. Sunlight enters the rafters through large windows at the top, which I keep open in the summer. I pull a chair from a stack, but it's dusty. I have no rags here or anything, so I use my sleeve to wipe it before having her sit in her white dress. She smiles.
Thank you.
I go ahead and practice, getting on the fake horse and doing the leg movements, front then back, over and over, closing my eyes and pretending I am on a real bucking bronc. I move my arm in tandem too, while my right hand grips the handle of my bareback saddle. I do this several times, and when I'm done, I look over at Winnie.
How do you stay on a horse that's bucking? She asks.
Luck and strong leg muscles? Her gaze falls to my thighs, and she averts her eyes. This next little bit I'm going to be on my horse, I warn her. Would you like to get on a horse too? A real one, that is? She scrunches her nose.
In my dress?
I could run you home and you can change, I offer, but she waves it off.
No worries. I'm sure it'll be all right.
I'm skeptical, but it's her call. We go out to the back pasture and catch my horse, Bo. He's a handsome black and white paint. I check around for Winnie, and she's got Macy, my sorrel mare, in a halter.
She put her nose into the halter,
she says with a little laugh. She's a good horse that way. I pause and add quietly, You've also ridden her plenty of times before. She pivots toward Macy and rubs her neck.
No wonder she's so sweet.
She notices my boots.
How come you're wearing spurs?
Just to get a feel for their weight around my ankles. I won't actually use them on Bo. I smile. Don't want to make him buck me off for real. Need help getting your tack on?
I think I remember.
But she stands there looking lost, unsure where to go. The tack's all labeled with dog tags. Just find Macy's, through that door. I point to a side room. She enters the tack room. It's a smallish space, no bigger than 4x4, but enough for all my tack and then some. I follow her in, daylight enough to see everything with. She hunts around for Macy's tack, her back turned toward me. I lean in to whisper, Right there, to your right. As I speak, my lips accidentally brush against her ear. She turns her profile to me, Her eyes raised to mine. How many times have I followed her in here, putting my arms around her waist and pulling her against the length of my body? She'd settle in my arms, unresisting, and I'd tip her mouth so I could capture hers in a searing kiss. Then she'd turn in the circle of my embrace and return my kiss, burning hot like a flame. Patrick? I shake my head out of the memory and find Winnie staring at me, Macy's reins and headstall in her hands.
I found them.
Oh, I say, stepping aside. Great. She heads on out with the tack, and I'm the one over here looking around, unable to remember where Beau's reins are, as flustered as I am.
Chapter 17. Macy. These two humans are exchanging doe-eyed glances with each other. Very romantic. My owner, Patrick, looks about as infatuated as a human can be. He watches her every move, touches her when he can, and even helps her up onto the saddle she's put on my back. Winnie keeps stealing glances at him when she thinks he isn't looking. She bites her lip like she's considering something. This is one of a few rare times when Winnie's come out. When she's visited in the past, it's to sit in a chair somewhere reading a book. But today, she's come to ride, and I'm prancing excitedly, happy to be taken out. I'm a big horse, and Winnie isn't able to lift her leg quite into my left stirrup, which works to Patrick's advantage. He has to help her into the saddle. He effortlessly lifts her by the waist, and she lifts her leg over my saddle, snug as can be. Her voice is soft and low as she thanks him. "It's nothing," he says. I wish he would just get her back off the saddle and kiss her already, but he doesn't. He walks over to my pasture pale Beau and gets on his back. They move off, and for a moment, this looks like a familiar scene. Patrick and Winnie riding side by side in the darkness of the barn. Except in the past, Patrick would have grabbed at Winnie and pulled her to him in a kiss. They were always kissing then, in the barn, out of the barn, in the arena, off the horses, or on. No kisses today, though. Odd. Chapter 18. Winnie. Craziness. I am trying hard to shove away this overwhelming feeling of wanting to kiss Patrick. Like earlier, in that barn tack room, I thought for sure he'd pull me to him and kiss me. Would I have resisted? Probably not. And then later, when we were coming out of the barn on our mounts, he flicked a longing glance my way. An answering tightness in my chest enveloped me. We ride outside to a pen into sunlight that is hot, but not unbearably so. I enter a riding arena, and Patrick latches the gate after me. I ride around in the periphery of the arena, while Patrick works on his horse in the middle. He rocks back and forth, swinging his legs forward or backward, depending on which direction his horse is bucking. He's fully focused on what he's doing, and a feeling comes over me. I am glad he's happy. I want him to be happy. I'm not even sure what that thought means, but I file it away in my heart for later. After a few minutes, Patrick breaks visibly from his practice. His frown is wiped from his face. He's even smiling. And Beau is so at ease. He tucks his back leg behind him. Patrick approaches me, and I avert my eyes because he looks so ruggedly handsome atop that horse. I'd hate for him to catch me drooling over him. "Good job," I say. Again, he gives me this surprised look that I've come to expect. "What?" I ask. When his expression turns quizzical, I explain. "You always look surprised when I say nice things to you." "It's not the nice things," he says. "It's the compliments about Rodeo." I blink at him in confusion. Why would I have a hang-up about Rodeo? He rubs his nape. "Not sure I should be the one talking to you about this. You could ask your mom." "My mom?" He nods. "She can tell you more about your dad." As we go back to the barn to untack the horses, my mind is preoccupied with the thought of my dad. Why is he the only one that I'm remembering of all the people in my life? Once again, as we untack the horses, Patrick and I find ourselves in this small room where there's barely any space for two people to get past each other. I am waiting behind him when he turns and takes the saddle and other tack from me. Our fingers touch, and my eyes are drawn to his. We both hold our breath until I say, "Thank you." I wait for him outside the barn, enjoying the shade of a huge tree. I'm leaning against the rail. As he comes close, I notice that he's got a piece of hay stuck in his eyelashes. "Don't move," I say. He dutifully obeys. "Close your eyes." It's easy to knock off the hay, and I brush it off his cheek. His face is beautiful. I want to trace every feature of his, starting with his eyes and his cheekbone. His eyes open, and we're face to face. Our breaths commingling. I realize I've been waiting for this the whole day. He kisses me gently, like the other day, sliding his lips over mine. He pulls away, just like the last time, leaving me wanting for more. I'm not sure who makes the first move, but we're in each other's arms, his fingers tangled in my hair, the kiss at once soft and strong, gentle then passionate, giving and taking. He groans and pulls me closer, making my heart exult. In the haze of our kiss, I hear the horse snicker, a tractor going in the near distance, a flock of birds startling from a tree. He pulls back, and we are both out of breath. Pressing his forehead against mine, he whispers, "I love you, Winnie." I know I loved him before the accident. I cannot deny the feelings that well up within me when I'm around him. Is it love that I'm feeling at the moment? I'm not sure, and the truth of the matter is, I am scared. I put my head in the crook of his neck and let him hold me close. I don't say the words back, but I hope in time I will truly feel them.
Chapter 19. Patrick. All that practice had better pay off. But I don't know. I've been pretty distracted lately, so we'll see. Since that second kiss, Winnie's become a little skittish. I wise up enough to truly give her space. When I come to visit, we keep to safer topics. No talk of love or the future, just making plans for the next few days. She's been seeing her doctor, who says that it may take her 2 months or more to recover her memory. Meanwhile, she's not remembering any more than when she started. I'm doubling down on getting ready for the rodeo. I sleep early, before midnight anyway, eat out on fewer hamburgers, run the entire route instead of skipping out on it early. One morning I come upon Winnie on her walk while I'm heading back on my run. I'm sweaty and probably stinky, and I wish I wasn't the mess that I was. She stares at me and bites her lip, and I'm pretty sure I'm giving her second thoughts over the prospect of marrying me someday. "Out for a walk?" I say, trying to not pant too much and let on that I'm about half dead from my run.
Yes, please don't let me stop you.
"It's all right. I'd love to walk back with you."
Are you sure?
She cocks her head.
What about breaking your personal record?
"Let's put it this way. If I survive the run, that's good enough for me." The sound of her laughter makes me happy. She's wearing a pair of black capris and a yellow blouse that looks so good on her. Her hair is tied up in a ponytail. I pull on the end of it. "You look cute," I say. She smiles and blushes. My gaze drifts down to her mouth, and then I yank it away. I've missed her, but that's my problem, not hers.
You obviously like to run, she says.
Actually, no.
Then why do you do it?
I have to stay in shape to compete.
Amazing. All the amount of work you put in for 8 seconds on a horse that doesn't want you on its back.
I laugh. That pretty much sums up what it's all about.
I don't get it. Running and bareback bronc riding?
I stuff my hands in my shorts pockets. See, I need to strengthen my body overall so I don't just flop around on the horse. I figure running's cheap compared to a membership at the gym.
I was looking through my receipts the other day, and I guess I was a gym member.
And it shows. It was meant as a compliment, and maybe an attempt at flirting.
You're funny.
It's true, I say, lowering my voice. You're beautiful. She looks down at the ground.
Thank you.
We walk in silence for a few minutes, and then she speaks again.
I'm going back to work next week.
I study her profile. Her brows are knit together. Are you nervous? I ask.
Very.
I bet you'll do great.
I hope so. Apparently I have an assistant named Lita who is happy to fill me in on what I've been doing the past few years.
She sighs.
I'm overwhelmed with how much I need to relearn.
You're a fighter, I wink at her. You'll be all right. To emphasize my words, I reach over and squeeze her hand. She looks at our linked hands and squeezes my hand back before letting go.
It's strange waking up to this life and self that I don't know anything about. I wish someone could give me my life script up to now.
I stuff my hands in my jeans pockets. Is that what you really want? When I look back at my life, there's definitely some rewriting I'd like to do.
Oh?
She studies my face.
What would you redo?
What wouldn't I? I laugh. Do you really want to know? It ain't pretty. She nods, and I almost regret bringing this up. When I was a kid, I say, I wasn't exactly the responsible firstborn. Gave my dad and especially my mom grief. I wasn't very good at school with reading. I pretended to be bored out of my mind, but truth was, I couldn't make out all the words. I've never been tested or anything, but I think I'm dyslexic. Got all the words jumbled up. I sneak a peek at her, and she looks like she's all sad for me. I'd never told you this, not all this time we've been dating. Surprise crosses her features.
And how long has it been?
5 years. She blinks.
That's a long time.
Yes, it is. I reach for her hand with the engagement ring. About time we tie the knot. I give her a sidelong glance. I love it when you blush like that. She blushes some more and then bites her lip.
I've been wondering how someone like me would attract a man like you.
I turn fully to her and stop in the middle of our walk. Her house is within sight and soon I'll have to say goodbye. What are you talking about?
You seem so put together, so successful. I was having my hair done the other day and the stylists were filling me in on your rodeo exploits.
I snort. Hogwash. Small-town gossip. Now it's my turn to blush.
All of the stylists are in love with you, which made me wonder why you give me the time of day.
I take a step forward, so close to her she reflexively takes a step back. Her beautiful green eyes are watching me intently, her breathing short and shallow. I fell in love with you because you and I are made of the same stern stuff, I say. After we met, you allowed me into your world, making me feel safe to let you into mine. I hate false modesty, so I'll be truthful. She gives me a wary glance. I can have any woman out there, I continue. Anyone. I go from rodeo to rodeo and there's women throwing me their hankies and who knows what else with their phone numbers after my rides and I just throw them all away. I pause. Because you are everything I need and want. She tucks her hair behind her ear, a nervous habit she's adopted since she lost her memory. It hurts my heart to see my Winnie being so hesitant, so tentative. I know what it's like feeling lost, I tell her. I've been there. I've been in the depths of despair after a loss because I can be an undisciplined mule. I won titles not because I'm the best, but because I've been lucky. Her eyes glitter.
You're too hard on yourself.
As you are on you. She continues walking, faster this time, like she's trying to shake me off.
I look at everything in my house, and I don't even know how anyone can live with so much color in life. I don't feel that inside me, and I feel sorry for you to be stuck with the new me.
I grab her hand. You have it inside you, but who cares about that? You're the woman you are now. Nothing going to change how I feel about you. She takes a deep, wobbly breath and nods. I walk her up to her door and she goes on tiptoe to kiss my cheek. I love you, I say to her closed door, after she goes in and I'm left alone on her step.
Chapter 20. Winnie. I press my lips together, hoping the vibrant red lipstick I'd chosen will actually lend me courage this morning. True to my word, I'm back to my realty work today, and I'm terrified. I pause at the glass door with a sky blue mountain logo on it and the words Mountain View Real Estate on it. There's a phone number and an open sign hanging below it from the inside. I open the door. From the desk at the entrance, a brunette with a blunt cut to her jaw looks up and smiles. "Winnie, welcome back, hon." "Hello." I glance at her nameplate. "Sally." "Lita is in your office." "Great." She reaches out and touches my arm. "If you need anything, hon, anything at all, just ask good old Sally, okay?" Her kindness makes me want to cry. I'm such a watering pot nowadays. "Thank you. I will." I walk into the office that she's indicated as mine, and my eyes immediately gravitate toward a bouquet of cherry sunflowers in a vase. "Hi," a woman with a purple angled haircut says as she rises from a side table and chair. "Lita, I take it?" She squirms under my gaze but shakes my hand firmly. "Yes, ma'am." "Listen," I say, and Lita leans in. "I might look put together, but I'm a mess inside. Let's just get that out of the way." Lita laughs. "You and me, Winnie. You and me." I approach my desk and look at the card tucked in the flowers. "Go get 'em, cowgirl. Love, Patrick." I lean forward to breathe in the late summer sweet scent. Lita sighs happily. "He delivered it this morning himself. Looked kind of put out that you weren't here yet. It reminds me of how you two were early in your relationship. Couldn't stay away from each other, always calling. Ugh." Lita rolls her eyes. "How's it going with Patrick?" I let out a guarded smile. "Good. Considering I'm engaged to this hunk and he's so sweet, but I have no idea how we even got to where we're at." I don't add that he also gives dangerous vibes, which I find extremely exciting. But my assistant doesn't need to know that. "You must have nagged him enough about getting married." Lita's eyes bug out. "Oops, did I say nagged? I mean, inspired." I frown. "What do you mean?" "Well, it's been a known fact around here that you've been wanting a ring on your finger. I only talk to you straight because that's how you demand for me to be with you. So why would I need to beg for him to marry me? The way he acts right now, it couldn't be further from that." "We're talking about the cowboy who tells me I'm everything he needs and wants, aren't we?" "Well," she says, "whatever happened to knock some sense into that cowboy's noggin? Hallelujah, because I swear you were about ready to break up with him." I take my place behind the desk, glad for the chair supporting me, because I am feeling lightheaded at the moment. I glance at Lita, whose purple hair matches her purple stilettos. Could she be wrong about Patrick? But why would she make something like that up? Despite my head hurting from confusion, I remind myself I'm there to do my job. For the next few hours, I rely on Lita to get me back on track. We go over my client list, the status of their contracts, who needs what right away, and who could wait until the following week. "I know enough to be dangerous," Lita says at the end of our marathon day. I just want to put up my feet and put a cold compress on my poor throbbing head. "Go home, sweetie," Lita says, and I do so, feeling major relief. When I get home, I unspool. My reality is so fragmented. I got through a day's work, and yet I hardly know who I am and who I was. Patrick has been the sweetest fiancé and a gentleman, not pushing me after that sweet first kiss. But Lita's recollection plants a seed of doubt in my mind. There's so much to understand and no room for negativity. I call Patrick, and he answers at the first ring. "How was your first day back?" he says. "Fine. Overwhelming." For the next few minutes, I tell him about working with Lita and going over my client list. Patrick listens patiently, encouraging me to talk. I'm glad to tell him everything, how Lita is like a taskmaster. He laughs. "That she is." I say lightly, "Lita told me the weirdest thing. She said I had nagged you for the longest time to get engaged." Patrick's silent, and then, "That's what she said?" I'm quiet back. He neither confirms nor denies it. My heart aches for the unknowns of this relationship. I cannot reach into my memories, and I am filled with doubt. You might have mentioned it a time or two, Patrick says, but we're engaged now. No one's keeping score, then or now. His words fill me with disquiet, but it calms me for the moment. Does it really matter what's transpired in the past, so long as he loves me, and I learn to love him back fully?
Chapter 21. Patrick. 2 weeks later. It's rodeo day. On the short drive to Winnie's house, I recall her words about Lita, how Winnie's been nagging me about getting married. That wasn't exactly true. Winnie never outright said we should get married, just acted disappointed when I'd give her jewelry other than a ring. Winnie has been a bit more reserved lately. It hasn't helped that she's been busy with her work, and I've been busy with the ranch and getting ready for the Bancroft Rodeo in Idaho. Bancroft's one of those low-hanging fruit rodeos. The competition pool isn't that big. Only problem is, I get kind of lazy getting ready. I had been telling myself lately to run some more and lift weights, but I'd pushed it off. Well, here it is today, and if I'm feeling soft, that's why. I come to Winnie's door. She answers it looking beautiful in her plaid yellow shirt with red stripes, the color bringing out her natural coloring. She's paired it with her red-hot boots with the turquoise accents, one of my favorites. I haven't seen this before, I say, catching the edge of her collar between my fingers. Any excuse to touch her. Her glance flicks at my fingers, then at her shirt.
In my closet with the tag on still. I'm sure I had a shopping problem.
You sure did. I put an arm around her shoulder and move her to my truck like old times, forgetting. Sorry, I say, loosening my hold of her. She leans into me, her arm around my waist, and then she lets me go. I sense promise. Once I'm in the truck with her in the passenger seat, my mind kind of heads rodeo-ward. I'm already rehearsing my moves on the bronc, how I'll lean back and let my legs fly, girding my thigh muscles so that I'm staying on by my legs. If I rely on my hold on the little saddle handle, I wouldn't have a prayer.
Hey,
Winnie says, breaking into my concentration.
You're speeding, dude.
I look down and she's right. I'm at least 20 over. I ease up off the gas pedal. Eager, I guess. She doesn't say anything else, and I appreciate it. My mind's all crowded with rodeo. I don't have room for much else. I catch myself speeding a couple more times, slow down, and eventually get us to the fairgrounds. The gate guy, a longtime friend, wishes me good luck. Ma'am, he says as he catches a glimpse of my passenger. I get out and open Winnie's door. She jumps out lightly on her feet and touches my cheek. Her palm is soft and warm, the expression in her eyes sweet.
Go get him, cowboy.
I laugh, and it feels good. I need her cute and funny joke. Got it.
A kiss for luck,
she says, and before I can react, she's planting a kiss on my lips. It's a quick caress, but it's as though a match has been lit. I reach up and comb my fingers through her hair, pulling her to me for a proper, thorough, and lingering kiss. She trembles in my arms and I release her, her expression dazed and longing. If only we weren't standing in a dirt parking lot at the rodeo and me needing to go get ready, I'd kiss her some more. You're forgetting something, I remind her when she moves to follow me. Get your hat on, cowgirl. Rodeo shoot etiquette. An understanding glint appears in her eyes and she reaches in the back of my truck for her hat, putting it on. She's even more beautiful with that finishing touch. I escort her to the shoot alley. One of the rodeo hands tells me my spot's at the end, and we make our way down.
Hey, Patrick!
A kid comes up to me. I think he's the son of one of the competitors. They like to hang out in the chute and watch the action.
You gonna win this one today?
I wink. That's the plan. He gapes at Winnie, like I've seen so many other guys, young and old, do over the years.
Hi, Miss Winnie. Hello.
Winnie smiles all friendly-like. I set my bag on the ground and start unbuttoning my shirt so I can change into my bronc-riding outfit, Winnie's eyes get round like saucers, and I chuckle to myself.
Chapter 22. Winnie. In a flash, Patrick goes from respectable cowboy hero to scandalous undresser. He's my fiancé, I remind myself, but I avert my eyes anyway after catching a glimpse of muscle and abs. I'm still shook up from our kiss in the dirt lot, and this doesn't help. I had only meant to give him a quick peck, but when he pulled me in for that kiss, holy cow. I'm still trying to put flames out from that, and then he does this. He's laughing at me, I can tell from how he dimples as he's unbuttoning his shirt and tugging the hem out of his jeans. I'm trying to be helpful, but I doubt there's much I can do, so I turn to the rest of the competitors. I can see a cowboy with a handlebar mustache, a clean-shaven tall kid, and a blonde smiley guy from where I'm standing. Then there are others on a gangplank, swinging their arms like they're shaking off performance anxiety. They're all good-looking, in that prime of health that looks great on cowboys that truly work on the land, chopping wood, moving horse troughs, and moving hay bales, more than anything. I turn back to Patrick. Surely he's done changing by now. Well, sort of. He's got a new shirt halfway off, and he's wrapping a roll of white bandaging material on his bicep all the way down to his elbow. His back is turned to me, thankfully, so I can watch without him catching me doing so. He looks over his shoulder and smiles, making my breath snag in my throat. "Do you mind giving me a hand?" he says. I suppose if you want me to act like a fool. I come over and he hands me the end of the bandaging. "Do you mind wrapping the rest until it runs out?" he asks. I nod, my throat parched and dry while I follow instructions he's whispering in my ear. Not too tight, just enough pressure. "Yes, that's right. Good girl." Our eyes meet, and there's a heat and hunger in his that reminds me of our earlier kiss. I return my attention to his bicep, which is mightily distracting in itself, as is his musky smell of maleness, hay, and leather. "Thank you." His voice slides low into my ears. "You're welcome," I manage to say before stepping back and out of his reach, but not before he reaches out and touches me at the waist, like he is entitled to as my fiancé. He shrugs the shirt back on, but that's not the end of it. He unrolls a long latigo attached to a small saddle that's resting on the fencing that separates us from the rodeo bulls and horses. He pulls on the 2-inch leather strip and sprinkles baby powder on the interior side. The white talcum travels through the air and to me, making me sneeze. "Bless you," Patrick says, his slow, lazy smile making my stomach flip all sorts of ways. He grabs a pair of boots and polishes them with saddle soap. He's focused on his task, sitting on the wood ledge by the chutes with the boots between his legs, chatting it up with an older cowboy. His friend looks up and sees me, breaking into a smile. "Well, if it isn't the most beautiful redhead in the world, what are you doing with this lunkhead still?" Patrick says with pride in his voice. "We're engaged to be married, Chub." Chub looks from me to Patrick and back. "You sure I can't talk you out of it? Not sure this fella is worth it." I smile at the banter. Patrick glances at me and our eyes lock. "Well," Chub interrupts our moment, "how about you marry me instead?" I feel out of my element, but I reply with, "He asked first, so—" "If that's all it takes, I would have been down on my knees from day one." Chub moseys on over to me and beams. "Seriously, I'm happy for you. You're one fine lady. He's one lucky son of a—" "You're right about that, Chub," Patrick interjects. The announcer starts the rodeo in earnest while Patrick and the rest of the riders are finishing up. I can't see over the chutes, but I want to, so I work myself up to get on the gangplank alongside the rails. I gasp as 2 strong hands lift me at the waist and help hoist me onto the wood planks. "Thank you." I turn and look into Patrick's heated gaze that makes me feel all hot, too, his touch imprinting itself through the fabric of my shirt. After the flag ride, national anthem, and prayer, the announcer talks about the day's events. We're starting with Bareback Bronc, Patrick's event. He's the rodeo opener and, from what I gather, a celebrity invitational rider. Welcome to our 4-time bareback champ, Patrick Brown. Folks, this guy here's a legend at 41. I'm that age and I can't even tie my shoelaces anymore. The audience groans and laughs. 41. I haven't actually asked Patrick how old he is, but this revelation is a pleasant surprise. With his silver hair, I had expected him to be older. He's aged well. I'm not exactly young at 35 myself. But it makes me wonder, at what age does Patrick plan to stop rodeo? This is a young man's sport. And where does that leave me? Us. A prickle of concern nags at me. Patrick's expression turns serious. Gone is the banter. Gone is the small talk. He shifts from the ball of one foot to the other as he tucks a suspender that forms an X across his chest. He's wrapped his right hand with more white bandage to help his grip on the handle on this itty-bitty piece of leather, I imagine. I come up to him, and he puts a hand on the small of my back. "Yes, baby," he says. "Where should I stand and watch?" I ask as people are coming to join us. I don't want to get in the way. His eyes gleam. "Right here beside me." I'm not actually of much use. Others have come over to help. Someone pulls on his horse's tack across its belly. Another person adjusts the headstall. Patrick gives me a preoccupied smile before climbing into the chute. Onto this bay horse that is caged in a space without a lot of wiggle room. Patrick grips his saddle handle and tests it a couple of seconds. The others watch from above as he wiggles even deeper into the saddle. There is fidgeting and fiddling as though every single detail matters. In reality, it comes down to how the horse and rider combust. Hard to predict. He adjusts his seat and nods. The rodeo bullfighters in their colorful shirts and shorts fling the gate open. 8 seconds is all. 8 seconds between man and horse. The bay creature bucks and kicks, mad at the world, whirling and trying to toss the cowboy on his back. The cowboy lifts his arm, pumping it to the rhythm of the horse's movement, his legs scissoring up and down with purpose and strength. His body leans opposite of where the horse wants to take him, a counterbalance. Patrick is beautiful. He is magnificent. He is also undoubtedly insane, as the horse jumps a good yard or two into the air. Time stands still as the pair soar in a spectacular arc. The horse's hooves land with a thud and the animal grunts. Or maybe it was the rider? The buzzer sounds and the crowd goes wild. I'm clapping too, tears of relief in my eyes. But it's not over. Patrick tries to get off of the bronc's back and onto the pickup man's horse. But something's wrong. His boot is caught in his stirrup. The pickup man tries to reach for him, but the bronc wheels around, taking Patrick with him. Patrick is trying to dislodge his foot, but the ankle is awkward and near impossible for him to adjust. He turns and falls onto the side of the horse on his belly. For 2 seconds, the horse drags him before Patrick falls in a cloud of dust onto the ground, stock still, crumpled. Dead? Oh, please, no. The audience is silent. My heart pounds so loud and a prayer goes through my mind. Please let him be all right, Heavenly Father. The crowd is cheering after a moment of disbelief because Patrick is getting up, dusting himself off and putting his hat back on. Hurting is my guess, but slowly and surely. He walks out to the chutes and climbs up. His face is dirty as sin, but his eyes are alive. He grimaces, then smiles as he tosses a leg over the railing and then the other. I cannot take my eyes off him. This dreamer, this cowboy, this man is everything a woman like me could want. I don't remember all of what he and I have been through, but I recognize myself in him, in his audacity. I know if he can get up from such a spill, I can too. I don't care who's watching. I open my arms to him and he comes to me to claim his victory kiss.
Chapter 23. Patrick. I cannot have enough of Winnie. After ranch chores and my morning run, I shower and head over to her house to spend as much of the day as I can. Most of the time, it's just making meals together. I cook her favorite pancakes, or she tries her hand at a new recipe. We eat, talk, and laugh, hold hands, kiss. Our kisses are sweeter, more passionate. In the kitchen, in the pantry, in the middle of scooping flour into a canister and making a mess of it, unheated on the wood floor, in the tack room, on horseback, on the porch without the light on, just the moon shining down upon us, and her finally urging me to go home, it's late. On the porch with the light on, moths buzzing above our heads as I don't truly get my fill, but content myself by holding her close to me. I love you, I would tell her, and she would squeeze my hand. I know she is feeling it too, but she's not ready for declarations. I totally understand and give her space, but one of these times I will have to bring up our wedding day. In the back of my mind, I feel a stab of guilt over my lie, but since we are both in love right now, it doesn't feel as wrong. Someday I will have to tell her. With each passing day, I also move that someday to later. You're invited to Sunday dinner with my family this weekend, I tell her at the end of a whirlwind, wonderful week. Her hand tightens around mine. Who will be there? She says, panic written across her face. My 5 brothers and their wives, the 3 who were married, that is, my widower dad. She swallows visibly, and I pull her close, kissing her nose. You'll do great, I assure her. The day arrives, and the plan is for me to pick her up for church. It's almost as nerve-wracking as the first time she met my family, except they already love her, and so it's mostly me being nervous for her sake. I come to her door in my sport jacket, jeans, and bolo tie, an outfit that my parents, okay, it was my mom, had cajoled me into wearing since I am allergic to formal suits. She opens the door glowing, even more beautiful if it were possible. She takes my hand in hers and admires me from head to toe. You look great, she says. You too. I cannot take my eyes off her. Today she is wearing a green dress with a bow at the collar and long sleeves that flow gracefully to her wrists, with a narrow-waisted black skirt that billows to just below her knee. I twirl her around to admire her fully, then steal a kiss that could have gone on had it been up to me and had we not been trying to make it to church on time. We are late anyway, but it doesn't matter. We are holding hands when we arrive just as the organ is playing and the congregation is singing. I lead her to our family's usual pew and everyone makes room for us. My married brothers and their wives and the remaining 2 who are widowed and aren't married yet respectively crane their necks and wave hello. I put my arm around Winnie's shoulder and hold her close. Well, not too close to make the old widow's eyes pop out, but close enough for me to smell that citrus fragrance that I love. She leans into me, and I could just be translated right then and there, like Elijah the prophet. I'm so happy. Pops beams at us approvingly, and I like to think that Mom, looking down on us from heaven, is beaming with happiness too. I lift Winnie's hand to my lips and kiss her knuckle, right up to her engagement ring. It reminds me that I need to broach the subject sometime to her about us setting the date for our wedding day. My head is in the clouds, but the fog parts enough for me to catch the pastor's sermon. If you have any unsettled debts you owe your fellow man, the time is now to settle them. If you have been dishonest in your dealings with your fellow man, now is the time to confess them. Even if you don't, God will see into your heart, and the retribution may not be swift, but it will come in His time. My heart pounds at his words. He looks at the congregation, seemingly right at me. My conscience is left hung to dry like laundry. He has found my dirty soul. I reason with my Maker silently as I hold close the woman I love. Listen, Heavenly Father, I love Winnie and she loves me. This might not have started out this way, but it has turned out to be the relationship of our dreams. I vow to serve her for the rest of my days, and I will be a blessed, lucky man if she were to be my companion until the eternities. My words feel hollow, even as my heart speaks them in earnest. The only reason Winnie is even with me is because I tricked her into this situation in the first place. She had been on her way back to her mom, breaking up with me, putting me in her history, stomping on me with one of her sassy boots. Winnie looks up at me, adoration in her eyes. I lean close and press my lips into her hair. I know what I must do, but I don't want to do it.
Chapter 24. Winnie. Patrick keeps giving me these teary-eyed looks, and I'm starting to worry a little. He looks so sad. What could be wrong? But within minutes of the church service's conclusion, everything seems all right again. He smiles easily and walks around with our fingers entwined together, showing me off to his brothers and their wives. I doubt I will remember all their names, though they assure me that I knew them once upon a time. There's soulful-eyed Sheldon with the vivacious Althea, who takes me under her wing instantly like a mother hen, Smiley McCoy and his cutely elegant wife Tori, Heath and his wife, and my fellow realtor, Noelle. Like Patrick, Chandler and Dylan aren't married. Dylan's daughter, who looks about 8, is cute and hugs me and says she's missed me. I don't remember her, but I love her already. Sheldon and Althea's kids, Bram, Gabe, and Tammy, are all polite and friendly. We gather outside after church, visiting with neighbors and friends. An elderly lady who looks to be in her 80s approaches me with her walker. "I have come to apologize, young lady. I'm 𝗵𝗽𝗶𝗹𝘆. I recognize her from the photo the newspaper ran after the accident. She is in her 80s with a suspended license. I had been asked by the police if I wanted to file charges, but I thought of this little old, frail lady languishing behind bars with her knitting, and I just couldn't do it. In person, she looks more feisty, like a little thing such as a driver's license couldn't hold her back. Please don't mention it, I say. Thank you. Tears well in Mrs. Clausing's eyes, and I clasp her hands warmly. I used to think what I was doing was harmless, but evidently it's not. Don't worry, my granddaughter has come home to help me out. Isn't she the cutest chauffeur? I exchange amused glances with a beautiful blonde woman who looked to be in her late 20s, assisting Mrs. Clausing at the elbow. Nice to meet you, she says. I'm Samantha, but I go by Sam. Nice to meet you. We chat for a few minutes. Chandler, Patrick's second to youngest brother, passes us and does a double take. Sam? He says, disbelief in his voice. Sam looks startled, giving him a steady gaze. Hello, Chandler. What are you doing here? I came home to help Grams out at her place. Chandler swallows visibly. Great. This last word comes out tight, like he means the complete opposite. Well, maybe I'll see you around. As we part, Patrick tells Sam to keep a close watch on this young lady. Mrs. Clausing laughs and bats her lashes flirtatiously at him. What was that all about? I ask Patrick as we walk away. Oh, you mean Chandler and Sam? They used to date. And with that explanation, I look back at Chandler, who is walking briskly away, and Sam, who looks stunned. Interesting, I observe. People give me curious glances, or maybe they're simply assessing if I remember them too. All these faces draw a blank, but I can sense everyone's warmth and caring. Besides, with Patrick beside me, I'm going to be all right. Patrick, my rock, holds my hand as we talk to the others. We smile and nod in reply, but our eyes keep returning to the other, happiness mirrored in their depths. His large hand touches the small of my back and steers me away from the others. His family is already loading up in their vehicles, and we follow suit. I slide into the passenger seat, and he steals a kiss that makes me tingle throughout my body. I wish now that we aren't heading to this meal with his family, but instead to our own private dinner, where we could prepare and eat and enjoy each other's company without any onlookers. At the same time, I am curious about his family. At the service and afterward, they put me at ease. They only want our happiness and well-being. I look forward to getting to know them again. Patrick's dad, whom everyone calls Pops, waits at his house by the door, greeting the brothers and their significant others as they file in. It's a large house, considering he raised 6 strapping cowboys here. My daughter, Pop says, opening his arms to me. I walk into his embrace, and he pats me on the back. Now, don't let my hooligan sons scare the tar out of you, you hear? If they give you grief, let me know. They'd better not, Patrick growls beside me. Pops goes on in, and we're just a step or two behind him. Tater, my 8-year-old soon-to-be niece by marriage, calls for me to sit beside her. I'm glad to do so. Her candidness is refreshing, and I can count on her to explain things. I'm too embarrassed to ask any of the adults for a play-by-play. Grandpops is going to have someone say grace, Tater explains. You used to give the signal to eat. Are you still going to do that? I don't know. Should I? Sure, like the old times. If they want me to. After grace, I feel everyone's eyes on me. Tater nudges me with her elbow. Go on, she whispers. I'm starving. I laugh and announce that people can start serving themselves. Tater and her older cousins, Bram and Gabe, and age mate Tammy, are the first to line up. I'm not anxious to get my food, content to watch, but Tater will have none of it. She cajoles me and Patrick to join her at the line. I'm aware of Patrick's comforting bulk and presence right behind me. Occasionally, I turn to find him watching me with undisguised love in his eyes. Love. An answering feeling blooms in my chest. Conversation swirls around us, but Patrick and I could be in our own little world. He feeds me bites from his plate, and I sneak forkfuls into his mouth. His brothers exchange knowing glances, especially the married ones. They're all handsome cowboys, but I only have eyes for one. One of his brothers, Dylan, who is widowed, asks, You guys set a date yet? I can feel Patrick's gaze on me. Up to Winnie right here. Then that would be next week. Everyone laughs, but the joke falls flat. I'm confused because Dylan doesn't seem mean, and yet here he was insinuating that I couldn't wait to trap Patrick into marriage, like that carelessly tossed out comment by Lita. I check to see what Patrick's reaction is, and my heart arrests for a second. He's staring Dylan down, furious. The laughter subsides into an embarrassed silence. We can't wait to get you into the family too, Pop says, but the damage is done. Patrick tugs at my hand. Come with me to the porch, he says. It's cooled off, and the bugs are at bay with the dry weather. I sense Patrick's nervous energy as we cross the porch to the edge where the steps are. He puts his arm around me and pulls me close, kissing my hair. I lean into him, trying to enjoy the moment, trying to not let any of the doubt surface. But he's turning me around to face him and says, I have something to tell you. His face is full of regret and fear, and I brace myself for what is to come. What is it? He presses 2 fingers on his lips, drawing my gaze to his scar. Attractive and dangerous, all at once. Then lowers them as he speaks. Right before you were in your accident, we got into an argument. I don't even remember what we were debating. You were reminding me about retiring from rodeo. I had told you the past 2 years that I was going to, but I obviously didn't. He pauses, and I wait on tenterhooks. You told me you wanted space. You were going to your mother's place to think and to... I really don't know what. I tried to talk you out of it, but I was sure this too would pass. It's a cloud that has come and gone in our relationship, to be honest, and I half expected us to kiss and make up the following week. His expression turns forlorn. We didn't. That was the last I saw you, before your accident. I am trying to compute everything and my head spins at this new information. Wait, were we engaged before that argument? No. I reel from this knowledge. You lied to me? I step back and pace, then stop, feeling sick to my stomach. Please, baby, let me explain. Don't call me that. Okay, he nods. I had a ring in my pocket after my ride in that rodeo. I was planning to propose to you. What is with everyone saying I was nagging you to propose? Patrick closes his eyes as though in pain, then opens them again. You never nagged me, but it has been obvious the past couple of years that you've wanted to get married. At least it seemed like that when I'd give you other jewelry. He rubs his nape. Frankly, I wasn't sure what you wanted, Winnie. I would be about ready to think of getting settled, but you'd mention how much you wanted to be independent. And sometimes you didn't even seem to care if I was around or going to rodeos. I hug my midriff. I don't remember anything to defend myself with. What you're telling me is unfair. True, I'm sorry. I thought maybe we'd turned a corner. You even came to the rodeo to be with me. You'd never done that much with me before. Why not? You never really told me, but it might have something to do with your dad being a rodeo star and leaving your mom, your sister, and you. I can't remember anything about my dad except for a few scattered happy memories. On top of Patrick's confession, this revelation makes me stagger back. Why would you lie to me about being engaged? Patrick's eyes are soft, pleading. Because I didn't want to lose you. My temple throbs with a dull ache. You could have just come clean. I would have given you a chance. I think. Patrick raises his eyebrows. Would you have? I suspect Gilbert would have gladly tried to enter the picture. Your mama's never liked me, especially since I'm one of those rodeo cowboys. She's tried to drive us apart from day one. Don't slander my mom that way. Patrick looks down at his boots and takes a deep breath. What else did you lie about? I say, and Patrick's head whips up. Did you lie too when you said you loved me? No, absolutely not. He looks deep into my eyes, no doubt to reassure me, but I simply cannot get myself to believe him. I meant it. I love you very much. But your actions... Oh, Patrick. My mouth trembles. How could you? Patrick takes his hat off his head and puts it to his chest. If I could undo everything I've done to hurt you, I shake my head. My anger burns hot. Stop. Just stop. Patrick waits and watches me. I don't look at him. The sunset is beautiful, with its intense colors spreading over the pasture. A shame, really, to waste such beauty around this emotional letdown. Who owns all this? I ask. He gives me a surprised look and then seems to remember that I've had amnesia. It's been in the family for generations. Pops owns it now. My heart aches because I want to be part of all this beauty, but not now. Not with Patrick's big lie. I know I screwed up big, he says. I know I could probably never make it up to you, but I would just ask you for a second chance. You don't have to answer right this minute. Just please think about it. I wrap my arms around me, feeling a chill, even though it's a hot summer night. I think it's best if we don't see each other. I need the space. He waits a beat. Of course. There isn't much more to say. I turn away from the sunset, whose colors are starting to fade, and from Patrick's defeated figure in the deepening darkness. As soon as I step inside, the family turns to watch me, expectant. Their smiles and the teasing glint in their eyes indicate that they are ready to give me and Patrick a hard time. A nursery rhyme from my childhood randomly enters my brain. Patrick and Winnie kissing in a tree. Kissing. The smiles fade, replaced by a concerned silence. Althea, Sheldon's wife, asks, Is everything okay? Yes, I lie and make my way to an obscured part of the dining room, in the corner, away from everyone. Althea seems determined to not let me off the hook. She moseys on over. Would you look at this, she says, fussing at 𝗺𝗲𝗄. These cowboys are hard on their late mother's decorations. She looks around. Where's that Patrick at? I left him out on the porch. I notice one of his single brothers, Chandler, making his way to the door and out. Did he do something to rile you up? Althea persists. I wish it were just a matter of riling me up. I look around to make sure no one is listening. Don't worry about the others. Althea sits in a chair beside me and sinks back into the cushion. It's too noisy to hear. Everyone does seem preoccupied with dessert or after-dinner conversation. I glance at the closed front door, idly wondering why Patrick hasn't come in yet. Part of me is relieved, part irritated. He's left me all alone to fend off his family. I glance at Althea. Her fingers are steepled on her lap, as though she has all the time in the world to wait. One of her children, Gabe, runs up to her. Can I have more pie, Mom? He looks nothing like her. He's blonde and she's brunette. Patrick had told me earlier that the 3 kids were adopted, but the love between them is obvious. Althea raises her eyebrow at Gabe. What'll this be, your 4th? 3rd. It's his 5th, Bram tattles, for a 12-year-old. He's tall. Gabe sticks a tongue out at his brother before looking expectantly at Althea. Oh, go on, Althea says, but that's it. We don't want you suffering from a stomach ache. He runs off, leaving me with his mom. Without the distraction, I feel obligated to answer. Patrick told me that he made up his being engaged to me, I finally say. We had actually broken up before I lost my memory. Althea blows out a breath. Goodness, really? I mean, Patrick can be kind of a pain sometimes, but he did that? She shakes her head. I nod, my strength waning. I want to just curl up in a ball on the floor under a thick blanket. Are you all right? Althea asks. Not really. I just want to climb in my bed and have a good cry. You need to get out of here? Althea's brown eyes are kind and caring. I don't know. I haven't even thought about that. I bite my lip. I came with Patrick. I don't think I want him to give me a ride home. You bet your bibby he isn't driving you. When you're ready to head home, I can take you. Thank you. My voice wobbles and tears prick my eyes. I don't know the all of it, she pats my hand, but we'll get this all sorted.
Chapter 25. Patrick. Something the matter? I turn to see Chandler approaching me in the darkness. The porch light is out and it's dark like my soul. If you must know, Winnie broke up with me, and I deserved it. Chandler walks up to me slowly, then stops. Wow, really? But I guess that explains her expression, like she'd been hit by a truck. I did that. I hurt the woman I love. What happened? Chandler asks. I expel a long breath. I told her we're not really engaged. I made it up. I fill him in on the details. His expression turns from surprise to disbelief. No kidding? Chandler replies. That's sick, brother. When her mom and sister came to the hospital, Ivy noticed Winnie was wearing a ring I'd put on her finger just then. She assumed we were engaged, and I didn't bother correcting her. Chandler scratches his nape. Why would you do that? I looked away into the distance. I didn't want to lose her. Well, that backfired. Tell me about it. I shoved my hands in my pockets. Why'd you tell her tonight of all nights? Why not just wait until you're married and then confess? Are you serious? I stare at his profile as my eyes get used to the darkness. Yeah. What could she do to you by then? She'd be too in love and would have to forgive you. Well, first of all, I shoot back, she'd probably wring my neck, and then she'd have our marriage annulled. Chandler shrugs. At least you'd have had a few weeks of married bliss. That's not funny. Sorry, but it's true. Wouldn't you rather have been married to her for a few weeks than lose her forever? Of course not. What kind of twisted reasoning is that? Remind me again why you're single. Chandler holds up his hands. Okay, maybe I'm not being 100% serious, but we could all die in a month and then you'd have lost your chance with her forever. I shake my head. I'd rather come clean now. At least I know that in the end, I did the right thing by her. But you didn't, Chandler helpfully points out. You lied. Thanks for the reminder. I tried to do the right thing before it's too late. Okay, I understand now, I think. What'll you do from here? Resign myself to a life of bachelorhood, I'm guessing. I'll never find a woman to replace Winnie. You messed this one up real good, brother. Are you here to help me or kick me further to the curb? Both? Chandler chuckles. I had a girlfriend like that once. Didn't fight for her like I probably should have. But no, I let her get away. At least you didn't get a taste of how it could be later in life when it really matters. Did you just tell me that my ex-girlfriend didn't matter? I just meant that when you're ready to settle down, well, that's when it matters. Were you ready then? I guess not. A star twinkles up in the night sky, reminding me that there are worlds out there and I'd found my star. An improbable thing, really, and then I'd gone and messed it all up. Chandler scuffs his boot on the porch floor. Do you love her? My voice, thick with sadness, cracks. Yeah. Maybe there's still a chance for a miracle.
I highly doubt that, but thanks. Chandler pats me on the shoulder. Welcome to the Heartbreak Club, brother. He goes on in. I stay out a couple more minutes, collecting myself. I should have gone in sooner, really. Who knows what my family is doing to Winnie in my absence? I step inside and everyone turns to look at me, then at Winnie. They know something's up. My eyes instantly go to Winnie. She's sitting in the corner with 𝗵𝗲𝗻𝗆, who's giving me this dirty look. 𝗵𝗲𝗻𝗆 knows. Good. The sooner the family knows, the better. Then maybe all the scolding and drubbing will blow over by Thanksgiving. I swallow at the thought of not spending that holiday with Winnie like we have the past 5 years, with her family or mine, but always together.
I'm taking Winnie home,
𝗵𝗲𝗻𝗆 announces. Winnie doesn't look at me, even though I wish she would look at my suffering soul. I want to run after her, throw myself in her way at the door and beg for her forgiveness, but I just stay in my seat by the others, taking off my hat and fidgeting with it on my lap. She slips out the door, obliterating my chances.
Where's she going?
𝗺𝗶𝗵𝗿𝗆's wife asks me. Home, I guess. Tori looks from me to 𝗵𝗽𝗄. 𝗵𝗽𝗄 is happily eating his slice of peach pie, oblivious because he's so in love with Tori. He reaches for her hand, and I ache with envy. That could have been me with Winnie. About half an hour later, the door opens and I sit up, hoping that Winnie has changed her mind, but it's just 𝗵𝗲𝗻𝗆. She marches over to me, her energy terrifying.
Patrick Brown, don't you have an announcement to make?
I swallow. I do? She nods.
I wanted Winnie out of here, so she doesn't have to be humiliated all over again.
What in hay-bales is going on?
Pops thunders from his favorite easy chair. Standing, I clear my throat. Winnie and I have broken up.
Correction,
𝗵𝗲𝗻𝗆 says.
Winnie dumped Patrick.
Pops blows air out his cheeks and purses his lips. The others watch me with horrified expressions.
No, not Winnie.
Tater stands, her face reddening.
She's been here the longest and now she's gone too?
Her dad, Dylan, grabs her arm. It's okay, Tater. Tater pulls away and runs out of the house, sobbing. Dylan throws his napkin to the side and goes after her. Y'all will have to fill me in on this later. The door shuts after him with a click. I start. Before she got amnesia, I'd planned to give her a ring and all.
Finally,
Pops comments. But she wanted to cool off our relationship that day. She was going to go to her mom's and she asked me for space, because I wouldn't commit to retiring from rodeo.
Atta girl,
Pops interjects. The feelings of worry wash over me again. And then I got a call she was in the hospital. I rushed over, and while her family was out of the room talking to the doctors, I slipped the ring on her finger, just as Winnie was waking up. I recall how weak she'd looked, but still how lovely she was, how much I wanted her in my life forever, how I'd almost lost her. She had lost her memory, I continue. So when Ivy mistakenly assumed we were engaged and Winnie looked to me for confirmation, I didn't correct them.
Goodness sake, son,
Pops explodes.
I raised you better than that.
I nod, my throat tight with regret. I know. Sorry, Pops. I look at everyone. Sorry to disappoint you all. There are no sympathetic glances or murmurs of encouragement. No one pats me on the back for coming clean when I hadn't even really needed to. Winnie had obviously been in love with me. In past tense.
Chapter 26. Winnie. Don't you worry about the family, Winnie, 𝗵𝗲𝗻𝗆 had said in her truck. They won't think badly of you. They ought not to, I said, feeling slightly irritated. I know, it's Patrick who's done you wrong, but has it occurred to you that maybe all of us are hurting too, at losing you? I looked at the darkness out the window. this is about the family? Tater is going to be cut up, Althea added. I remained silent. The memory of that little face lifted to me is crushing. But I didn't give in to the guilt. I didn't cause this. And the couples will all be shook up. When you see a love like yours go down in flames, it shakes your faith in love. I know it's shaken mine. I'm sorry, I can't be your poster child. Winnie, even coming from you, that's just cold. What do you want me to say, Althea? I returned hotly, emotions spilling out of me like a mug of hot chocolate left too long in the microwave. Nothing, really, hon, I'm sorry. I said anything, forget it. Please, tell me. Althea gave me a wary glance. Patrick's not the only one invested in your relationship. The rest of us are, too. Maybe he shouldn't have lied like he did then. It doesn't excuse his behavior, but did you stop to think he didn't want to lose you? He said that, yes. My mind burned with the memory of Patrick's slumped posture, his apologetic voice. So you believe him? I believe him that he didn't want to lose me, but I find it hard to believe him from here on. Relationships are hard work between two imperfect people. I averted my face. Here we went again. Sheldon and I didn't go from A to B with ours, Althea said. I kept a secret from him for a long time, tried to push him away. An animal, rabbit, fox, crossed the street ahead, and Althea stepped on her brakes to let it pass. I told him I wasn't interested when I was scared I'd lose him over my inability to have children. The glowing faces of Bram, Tammy, and Gabe appeared in my mind. You obviously didn't scare him off. No, because he fought for me. Knowing Patrick, he won't give you up without a fight. I crossed my arms. I won't let him pressure me into coming back. No, you shouldn't. He deserves to suffer the consequences of his actions. But at some point, you'll have to decide if the special love you have is worth fighting for. I don't even remember who I was, Althea, and I certainly don't remember how Patrick and I were. You were the most dazzling couple. So much life and daring do between the two of you. It was obvious to all of us when you first came to Sunday dinner some years ago that you were the one he'd settled down for, even if it took him a while to realize it. I'd felt it too, these recent weeks, only for it to blow up in the face of a lie. Althea pulled into my driveway and cut the engine. This isn't his first mistake, Winnie, and it won't be his last. You'll have to make the decision time and time again to kiss and make up. My chest warmed at the memory of our kisses, the way my curves fit perfectly and complemented his muscular torso. I closed my eyes and shook off the longing that overcame me. He had lied, in a major way. I won't be played for a fool, not like my mom. Althea smiled. If you ever want a friend who won't take either side, you can always call me. I probably won't, I confessed, but thank you. Fair enough, she gave me a sad smile. Take care, sweetheart. I let myself into my quiet house, turning on the lamps in the living room. Everything is as I'd left it this afternoon, down to the framed photos of me and Patrick. I take a deep breath, walk over, and pick one up off a side table. I stare at the two of us. My eyes trace his wide jaw, stubble, broad shoulders, 𝗷𝗂𝗍𝗶𝗵𝗆 smile, and those capable hands that held me close to him. His kisses had burned through my very soul. Fire and brimstone, if you ask me. Lots of energy in one place. Maybe God planned for this because we are too much together. Too bad all that was ruined to shreds by deceit. When my tears start falling, they take a long while to stop.
Chapter 27. Patrick.
Come on, Patrick, Sheldon shouts. Get your head on straight.
I shake myself back into the moment. Sheldon waits behind the wheel of a tractor with a half a dozen hay bales to add to the pile in Pops's barn. I jump to the side. He frowns as the tractor rumbles past.
You trying to get yourself killed? I don't answer, and he wouldn't need one anyway. He's joking, making light of my inattention lately. I'm normally not one to wallow in self-pity, but the world has lost its color since Winnie broke up with me, for good this time. I haven't exactly thought about harming myself, but the thought flashes through my mind. Who cares if I stick around or not? Certainly not Winnie. Since that Sunday dinner where 𝗷𝗂𝗍𝗶 drove her home, I haven't seen her shadow. Not anywhere in town, though I tried to go to the usual places. Not at the grocery store, not at the gas station, not at the burger joint. A couple of times I caught a glimpse of red hair and I got all buzzed like lightning was about to zap me and it was someone else. I miss her. I miss her laugh, her frown of concentration when she's cooking or cutting up her food in little pieces, her fiery attitude. I miss holding her, kissing her until we're both breathless. I miss holding her on the couch while watching whatever chick flick catches her fancy. I usually grimaced and rolled my eyes, but I really didn't care. I just wanted her happy. Chandler walks over to me and wipes the sweat off his brow with his forearm. You heard the latest about Winnie? I brace myself. Chandler's always full of manure when it comes to Winnie, but I take the bait. What now? She's dating that fellow with the glasses. What's his name? Gilbert? Yeah, him. I take my gloves off and thwack them on my pant leg. The pain stings, but it's a welcome ache to remind me of my stupidity that led to Gilbert's triumph. Who told you? Chandler averts his eyes. I saw them at the burger joint sitting side by side. I swallow with pain. So she's already moved on from me. Holding hands? Didn't see that, but then I couldn't exactly see under the table. The thought of her holding hands with another guy makes me want to blow something up, chop wood, anything to release this rage that takes over my entire being. I snatch my gloves up and stalk away from the hay barn. Where are you going? Chandler calls out after me. Burn off some steam. I thought this was what we were doing, he replies, but I ignore him. I walk through Pops' front yard and stop short. Standing at the gate with Tater is none other than Winnie. What is she doing here? I can't breathe, let alone form any coherent thought in my brain. Her hair cascades down around her face, breathtakingly beautiful as I remember her. She obviously hasn't had any issues with our breakup. Life has gone swimmingly well for her. She's dating again, and she's even kept Tater's company. Thank you, Tater tells Winnie, casting a glance at me before running up the steps into her grandpa's house. I look back at Winnie, who's staring at me. Crikes. I remember belatedly that I'm all sweaty and covered with hay, probably looking like the deadbeat she thinks I am. Hi, I croak out like a lovesick guy. Some brilliant greeting. Hi. She doesn't move from the picket gate. The white fence separates her from me, a reminder of the gulf I cannot cross ever again. I walk over, who cares how bad I look, and stop just before the fence. How are you? Her smile doesn't reach her eyes. Fine. I hate myself for thinking this, but I'm glad she looks like she suffered a little too. Her lips droop a little at the edges and there are shadows under her eyes. I want to reach out and pull her close to me to make the pain go away, but I just let my hands drop to my sides. And you? She asks, her voice taking over my senses like a velvet glove. Good. Mucking around as usual. I pluck at my sweat-soaked shirt. Moving hay bales. Do I imagine a heat creep into her eyes as she gives my torso a once-over, her gaze settling for a long second on my mouth? But she only notes, her eyes averted. You've got hay on your lips. I have hay everywhere, I chuckle. But she doesn't smile, and she's looking around like she wants to escape. I don't want her to leave, so I'm pulling all sorts of thoughts from my brain. What were you and Tater up to? I took her out for ice cream. That was nice of you. I felt I owed her a proper goodbye. Goodbye? My heart squeezes with pain and I wince. You can't take me out for a goodbye ice cream? My joke falls flat again. She bites her lip and looks at the sky. Her green eyes glitter and I realize tears are forming in them. I feel like a heel. All I ever do is make her sad. I better run, she says, twisting away. I grip the fence between us. I don't care if she slaps me. I need to tell her the truth. She should appreciate that. Winnie, I miss you. My voice is low, groveling. She gives me a side glance, and for a moment, I think I see longing mirrored in her eyes. But she shudders the emotion with her lashes. Gilbert is waiting in the car for me. I notice the car on the curb for the first time. Boring white, safe sedan that I can't even place what model, it's that plain. Gilbert is sitting in the driver's seat and is coming out now. I haven't wanted to throw a punch at a guy more than at this moment. He took you and Tater to the ice cream shop? My voice sounds more menacing than I mean it to be. Patrick, she warns, you aren't seriously dating him. Winnie's eyes narrow. And why shouldn't I be? It's like trading a stallion for a pony. Her mouth falls open. You are so full of yourself. I'm like a horse barreling out of control, I admit. What does he do? Give you a goodnight kiss on the cheek? Goodbye, Patrick. Winnie stalks off to the passenger door where Gilbert the pony holds it open for her. I scowl and stare him down. His already pale skin turns even paler and he scurries to the driver's side. Will you watch me clinch another championship buckle at the country rodeo next week? I call out to Winnie. She's staring straight ahead, ignoring my question. I grip the fence until the car with the pony of a guy bears her away from me down the street.
Chapter 28. Winnie. That Patrick, ugh! I rub my temples as they throb. He sure knows how to push my buttons. Buttons. My mind strays to the image of him in that sweaty plaid shirt, unbuttoned at the top, his chest hairs peeking at the V. He looked dirty, plastered with all that hay, his face dripping with sweat, his shirt soaked through, clinging to every muscle. Terrible. Rugged. Masculine. Sexy. I kick myself mentally. You and he are over, right? Right. Are you okay? Gilbert asks, breaking into my thoughts. I glance at him guiltily. His brown eyes are so serious. His hair is combed in place. No stray hairs on his forehead. He's safe. No danger there. No bantering or flirting. Plus, Mom likes him. Okay, not everyone is a perfect 10. Have you ever moved hay bales? I ask. He blinks like a robot who's processing the request, as though my question is fritzing out his sensors. Sorry? Have you ever worked on a ranch, doing ranch chores? Gilbert pushes up his glasses by the bridge and clears his throat nervously. No. Why? Just curious. He'd answered as I expected, but my stomach sinks in disappointment. I picture him using a pitchfork to spear hay onto a trailer. And all I see in my mind is Patrick a few days before our last breakup, focused and working hard, his biceps bunching at the effort. I'd sprung up on him, catching him unawares and having him clutching at his chest. And then he growled and pulled me unresisting against his sweat and grime, teasing me with little pecks on the lips until he captured my mouth in a passionate kiss. Gilbert drops me off at my house and looks about ready to shake my hand, not even trying to get a kiss on the cheek. I wave from the front door and enter, throwing my purse on a stuffed chair. I look around at the decorations in the house. I'd taken down everything that reminded me of Patrick, stuffing the framed couple and his solo photos into drawers until I had the energy and inclination to deal with getting rid of them permanently. Permanent sounds so final. Is that what I truly want? Well, yes, I said as much to Patrick, and I'm not one to go back on my word. Then why was seeing Patrick earlier today harder than I thought it would be? I rest my hand on the dresser drawer and take a deep breath before pulling it open. The frames are upside down, with the pictures turned over. I pick one up and gaze at Patrick on a bucking bronc, his spine arched, his hat stubbornly staying on his head, his expression not one of fear, but of grit. The rodeo. I hadn't planned on going. I'm not going to watch Patrick, nor am I going behind the chutes to watch him. It would be a painful reminder of the lie he fed me. My phone rings. It's Tater in her cute, slightly breathless mile-a-minute voice.
Auntie Winnie, will you go to the rodeo with me? Dad can't take me, but he says I can if I go with the grown-up, and I pick you.
Oh, hun, I stammer. I wasn't planning to go either.
You can't go any of those days?
I want to say that I wasn't planning on going at all, but imagining the disappointment in her voice cuts me to the quick.
It's Thursday or Friday or Saturday, Tater says. Right, Uncle Patrick?
Wait. I freeze. Your uncle is there? I purse my lips. Figures.
Yeah.
Can I please talk to him a minute? A muffled sound like she's asking Patrick something then.
He says he'd be glad to.
Of course he would too. How dare you, I say when he gets on, using Tater to trick me into coming to the rodeo? That's low. I swear it wasn't my idea. Tater was asking when the rodeo was. Her dad said he couldn't go, so she picked up the phone. I had no idea she was going to ask you. I wish I could say I believe you. The amusement flees from his voice. You can believe me this time. This time. I lean into the phone, shoring up the hurt that rises to the surface. Winnie. His voice is low and rumbly, making my stomach flip. During the time we were engaged, he'd call me after dropping me off, and we'd talk for another hour or so until I'd get sleepy. He'd sign off with, I love you. I almost did, too. I brush off the memory. Let me talk to her again. Okay.
Hello?
Tater says, bright as a new penny. I was already planning to tell her no. She's a big girl and would understand. However, I can't snuff out the hope in her voice. As long as your dad is okay with me coming, we can do it.
Yay!
Tater's enthusiasm makes me smile.
We should go on Friday. That's when Uncle Patrick rides.
I close my eyes and wince. Okay, sweetheart. I call my mom afterward and tell her I'm going to the rodeo the following week. Really? She asks. That's about a record. What do you mean? She's quiet for a long minute. You used to hate to go since you were a little girl. How come? I hear her letting out a breath. I may have poisoned you against it. I don't understand. We should chat in person, not by phone. Are you free right now? I can come over with some baked chicken wings. Okay. I frown at Mom's cryptic words. You okay driving that far? It's my day off, so why not? Chapter 29. Winnie. 2 hours later, Mom arrives, pleased as can be that her chicken wings have turned out so good. I tried this new recipe from a magazine and it was so easy. I just bake it in the oven and it's done. Easy peasy. She peers at my eyes. Have you been crying? No. And that was the truth. I'd pretty much cried myself wrung out. Just tired, I guess. Good. Rodeo cowboys aren't worth shedding tears over. Her phrase, rodeo cowboy, bounces around my head. Why don't you like him, Mom? Mom pauses on her way to the kitchen counter. She doesn't answer right away and takes her time putting the baking dish in the oven to warm. Turning, she sits on the bar stool and studies me. You need to know something, she says, from your past. I sit, too, in case I need to brace myself for a revelation. I don't think I can take more of these secrets, I say with a nervous chuckle. My dear Winnie. She squeezes my hands and lets me go. I wish I could spare you, too. Tell me, my voice is hoarse from anticipation. Your dad was a rodeo cowboy. I nod. I remember that much. He was a good one, too. I remember him getting buckles. Oh, yes, he was very good. Mom's mouth twists. At that and other things, too. Womanizing, among others. My stomach sinks at this information. He had a girlfriend at every rodeo town. Meanwhile, there I was, raising you and your sister by myself. We'd had this arrangement that I would stay home with you children while he did the rodeo circuit. I thought then he was doing it to spare me the nomadic life. Her shoulders sag and she looks older. I'm sorry, I whisper. No, I'm sorry, hon. I could have spared you the years between when I discovered his affairs and when I finally left him to start a new life with his second wife and her 6 daughters. She pauses. You had to witness so much bitterness. Not so much Ivy, thankfully. But you, on the other hand, she touches her upper lip and her eyes fill with tears. You vowed to never get involved with a rodeo cowboy. So that's why I hadn't been fond of rodeos, yes. Understanding lights up my mind like a flashlight in a cellar, and yet I fell for Patrick. In his defense, she says in a grudging tone, he seems like a decent guy, driven and ambitious, even if it was misplaced in the sport of rodeo. When you first brought him home, I asked him to wash dishes with me in the kitchen, where I gave him straight talk. I told him if he broke your heart, I would come after him myself with a bullwhip. Did you really? Of course. I struck fear in his cowboy heart, she smirks. Why didn't you get on him for lying to me? I did. Her eyes light up with indignation. I called him and gave him a piece of my mind and told him to stay away from you. My hiccup turns into a sob, and then I'm being gathered into Mom's arms. Oh, my poor baby, she says, stroking my hair as I weep. I do think he loved you. Maybe a little too much. That was terrible of him to pull the wool over our eyes like he did. That's not the way to keep a girl. No, it's not. I wipe my tears and pull away. It's a sneaky way to marry a girl. Funny. You wanted to marry him, but She gives me a sheepish grin. I might have talked you out of pushing him to propose, and when he finally does, you talked me out of it? Well, sort of. You'd come to me saying he wasn't proposing, so I used to remind you about your dad. Gave you cold feet several times. It's all good anyway. I blow my nose on a tissue. Or I'd have been married to a rodeo cowboy. The timer dings and Mom takes the chicken out. A sweet, garlicky smell fills the kitchen. Mom eyes me with a sweet sadness. I have to say, not all rodeo cowboys are terrible. It's sure a hard lifestyle on marriage. But I've known couples who make it. If your dad weren't a rodeo cowboy, I am sure he would have gone on to cheat on me. Rodeo gave him a good excuse and plenty of opportunities to meet groupies. Ironically, he settled down into a life of boring respectability. When he's not selling life insurance, he lives in the suburbs with his wife and her girls, driving them everywhere to sing. I reach for her hand. Why haven't you married all this time, Mom? What, and give up my independence? She laughs, but there's a tinge of loneliness in her voice. I haven't found the guy I'd trust with my heart again. There's Patrick's dad. Mom swats at me playfully. Are you kidding me, Rowena Marie? I don't want to get involved in that family if I can help it. You wouldn't want Patrick to be your stepbrother, would you? The thought makes me giggle. Well, at least he'd know he's off limits. As if that would stop that cowboy from pursuing you. Mom rolls her eyes, but the truth is, Travis Brown is still in love with his wife, Helen. May she rest in peace. And she would be a hard act to follow. You're not exactly a drudge, I say, lifting the foil from the baking dish and snitching a piece of chicken skin. Yum. A man would be so lucky to have you for his wife. I'll date again when I am good and ready, Mom says, tossing her head carelessly. Meanwhile, I'll enjoy life on my own terms. Silently, I vow to do the same. This time, without Patrick.
Chapter 30. Patrick. My boots slog through mud as I make my way through the shoot alley. It's been raining on and off all day. If it would just hold off for the evening, life would be good. I don't mind some rain, but mud can be a pain. Plus, if there's lightning, the rodeo could be postponed for an hour or two. The weather about sums up my own mood, trying to get over Winnie.
Sheldon and his oldest son, Bram, trail behind me. Bram wanted to check out the rodeo, and Althea gave her blessing, figuring it could be a teaching moment insofar as work ethic.
"Please don't let him see cowboys getting gored, okay?" she asked as a promise from me and Sheldon.
"I don't exactly control what bulls do in the arena," Sheldon said.
"Still," Althea pointed with her pen for emphasis, "I don't want the kid traumatized."
Bram had us in stitches in the truck telling us of the mishaps and crazy stuff he's learning in biology class, operating on frogs, and Althea's worried about exposing this kid to blood and guts. Once I enter Chute Alley, I start unpacking my gear. The saddle, the latigo, the talcum powder to make it tighten on itself smooth. The memory of Winnie wrinkling her nose at the powder when she first watched me get ready for a bareback ride returns to me. She had been so cute, sneezing at least a half a dozen times. Winnie will be here today with Tater. I'm tempted to scan the bleachers for her, but I'm a little later than usual and can't spare any moment to anything but getting ready, physically and mentally. There's plenty to do until my ride. A few bareback riders come over to congratulate me on my last win and wish me luck. It's a great community that way. We talk trash when we want, but ultimately, we each know that we can sure use the extra help from others. And yes, even from God, for reluctant Christians like me. Bram watches me quietly. The boy's feelings run deep, and he only speaks when spoken to. As his uncle, I'm mighty proud of how far he and his siblings have come. He arrived at Sheldon's B&B a serious, you could almost say sullen child. At 12, he'd seen plenty of things a child shouldn't have to be subjected to at that age in his short life, and yet he's made lemonade out of lemons. "You're getting to be quite the horseman," I tell Bram. "Who knows? Maybe you'll get into rodeo someday too." Sheldon puts his hands on his hips. "Not if his mom has her say." That's a surprise to me. Althea is against rodeo? Sheldon grimaces.
Sometimes he gets so obsessive about riding he forgets to do homework. "I forgot my homework once," Bram says.
"Here's a secret." I lean close to Bram. "I didn't do too well in school either."
"Don't give him any ideas, Patrick."
I cock my head and hold up my hand. "Listen," I tell Bram, "the announcer's talking about the flag riders. Pretty soon someone will sing the national anthem. Next will come the mutton bustin' and then bareback bronc." While the flag is brought around at impressive breakneck speed around the arena, we stand without our hats on at the chutes. A trio of young ladies break into a pretty harmony for the national anthem. Bram climbs next to me at the chutes afterward. He laughs at the little tykes competing at mutton bustin' while I finish my taping. I shift from foot to foot to get my nerves shaken out and scan the bleachers. It's a full house tonight, and there's no way I can see from this far if there's a certain redhead. She may be out there, though. The thought of her watching brings tremors of nervous excitement through my body. We have the usual suspects in the chutes: Cass, Grit, Asher, Boone, and Eli. Old-timers and newcomers and everyone in between. I'm one of the older ones, I reckon. There's rodeo royalty, siblings who usually take the medals in their matching Wrangler shirts with other sponsor patches on their sleeves. Most of us have our gear on already and we're stretching or meditating. I may not be a true blue praying man, but I bow my head and take off my hat, leaning against the rail and telling the big man above that I will try to be kinder and give to charity if he helps me out in the arena. Then I say I'm joking. Trading blessings for promises doesn't exactly show faith. It's time to get up on the plank and get rigged up for my mount, a black and white paint who's as pretty as he's ornery. His name is Brutus, but he could have been nicknamed Brute, as sour as his disposition is. Not that I'm complaining. When they have so much pent-up rage, they try to buck us cowboys in a more dramatic fashion. Our job is to stay on, of course. That's a different story. Sheldon helps me check Brutus's back cinch while I center and tighten the saddle rigging. I show Bram how tight the leathers are, and his eyes are wide, taking it all in during the commotion at the chutes. The horses strain nose to tail in a chute with enough space, barely for their bodies. There's 4 or 5 helpers assisting the rider at each chute. I climb over the railing and settle my weight onto Brutus. He pricks his ears back. I'm sure he wants to hurt me, to throw me off his back for subjecting him to all this harassment. "You can try to hurt me soon enough, Brutus," I murmur. "Good luck, Uncle Patrick," Bram says. I look up into his face, halfway to being a young man and still looking somewhat innocent. I was his age when I first got real serious in rodeo. Will rodeo affect him as much as it did me? "Thanks." My gloved hand is in the saddle handle, my thighs are pressed against the horse's flanks, and I lean back. I nod, and a couple of rodeo hands fling open the gate. Heaven help us, Brutus is on one tonight. He leaps into the air, a good 5 feet up, but I stick like a burr. He whirls his rump around and I tip, but somehow keep my seat. He bucks again and I follow the movement, flattening my back on his rump and springing into a sitting position. Back and forth, side to side, I ride out the tornado on 4 legs. When the buzzer sounds, the crowd goes wild. Brutus isn't done crow hopping, but I am done with him. The pickup men are gaining on us fast on either side, and the bullfighters are on the ground on the ready in case things go south fast, like sometimes they do. I lean to the left to go over to the pickup man. I recognize him as Lee. These rodeo guys travel from competition to competition, and I've gotten to know some of them. Lee reaches for me too, but the world spins all of a sudden, like Brutus is being pulled from under me. He must have hit a wet patch in the sand and he's wiping out, all 4 legs out from under him. I am free of the stirrup, thank heavens, and so I'm slipping out and roll onto my side. Not far enough. As Brutus hits the ground, he lands square on my chest, and I feel the impact through my vest, like a truck hitting me straight on. My head snaps back and my breath is knocked out of me. The rodeo bleachers turn into a blur, the lights swimming in my eyes before everything turns hazy, like I'm in a tunnel of muffled sounds and dull lights.
Chapter 31. Winnie. As I sit in the rodeo bleachers, some memories are returning to me. Rodeo smells and images. My dad getting ready for his bull ride and going off to the chutes. Next memory is of him hurt, with Mom rushing from the stands, leaving me to take care of Ivy. She's gone for a long time. How old was I? I can't even remember. I'm trying to ignore the queasiness brought on by the reminiscing while I sit next to Tater. She is chatting away about her new horse and 4-H practice while munching on a funnel cake I'd bought her. "That's great," I say. Bareback Rodeo is next, and my gut clenches. This is Patrick's event. Despite our differences, I hope and pray that he has a good ride. I don't want him or anyone hurt. Truth be told, I wish I hadn't come. I hate this worry, especially since I have no right to worry anymore. They announce Patrick, and Tater tugs at my sleeve.
Uncle Patrick's on, Auntie Winnie.
My brain registers that she still calls me that cute moniker, Auntie, when I am no longer part of the family. I don't think too much of it as I watch Patrick bust out of the chute, looking mighty fine on the black and white paint. The horse is truly the athlete as he bucks and rises a couple of yards into the air. 2, 3, 4 bucks. But Patrick sticks on his back, his legs scissoring in that graceful rhythm that looks effortless on him. The buzzer sounds. It's over that soon.
He made it,
Tater says, hugging me, and I hug her back, just as applause rises from the stands. But just then, there's a hush. Tater and I break our hug and turn to the arena. The horse is falling, and Patrick is still on its back. He throws himself off, but the horse still lands on him partially, slowly and surely. Then the horse scrambles to his feet. The cowboy's not moving.
Uncle Patrick!
Tater screams, and I hold her, unsure what has happened. A crew of medical personnel run into the arena. The horse swings around wildly, threatening the newcomers who wait, before the pickup men untie the cinch around its waist. The horse moves away, and the medics can finally do their job. They block Patrick from the view of the audience.
What are they doing, Auntie Winnie?
Tater asks.
Is he dead?
I hold her hand tight in mine. I don't know, sweetheart.
I'm going to pray.
The sweet girl says, "Yes," I say, "you do that."
Dear Heavenly Father, please bless Uncle Patrick so he won't die. He had such a good ride. He deserves to celebrate that first, don't you think? Okay, I was just kidding.
Her voice breaks.
Seriously, please bless him, because Auntie Winnie still needs him to live. They were going to get married, but not anymore, and definitely no chance of that happening were he to die.
I hold her close to me and smile despite the situation. I may have also peeped at the little huddle in the arena and Patrick's still figure being checked out.
Thank you, Heavenly Father, Tater continues, for horses and cows and all the animals that make rodeo fun. Please bless this horse so he doesn't feel too bad for hurting Uncle Patrick. Amen.
Amen. I kiss her forehead and pull her into another hug. The crew is finally moving away, carrying Patrick on a stretcher. The crowd applauds, which seems weird, since for all we know, he could be dead on it. "Patrick Brown's ride is good, folks," the announcer says, "and so far, he's clinched the top spot." More wild applause. I am biting my nails trying to decide what to do. Should we go to Patrick?
We should go check on Uncle Patrick,
Tater says, deciding for me. In the shoot alley, the medics are working on Patrick some more. Tater and I wait outside, just a little past the stairs leading up to the announcer booth some 20 feet high. Tater sees Sheldon and waves at him. He comes over with Bram.
"How's Uncle Patrick?"
Tater asks. "He'll be fine, I think." Sheldon looks back at the little crew working on Patrick. "He might have broken a rib or two. So far he's coherent, though in a lot of pain." Tater and I exchange relieved glances. "Would you like to see him?" Sheldon asks, looking straight at me. Tater nods.
"Yes, please."
Sheldon bends to Tater's height and puts a hand on her shoulder. "I meant Auntie Winnie, okay, Tater? Let's have Bram hang out with you." He looks at his son. "Can you be in charge of Tater, Bram?" "Of course." Bram looks stunned, his gaze returning time and time again toward the medics. I don't think I should," I tell Sheldon, and then immediately regret it because it sounds so callous, uncaring. It's the furthest thing from what I'm feeling at the moment, I realize. I just don't want to get in the way. "Sure, no problem," Sheldon says, and returns to Patrick. The medics disperse once again, and this time they're taking Patrick in the stretcher to a waiting ambulance. I am standing off to the side, trying to not get run over by cowboys coming and going, but a gap opens in the crowd. I see Patrick, and he sees me. He gives me a weak smile, and then he's put into the back of an ambulance. The crowd applauds him from the stands.
Chapter 32. Patrick. Broken ribs are the worst, the doctor says. I'm sitting in a hospital room. There's another bed next to me with a curtain divider, but no one's on the other side. At least what I can tell from where I'm lying anyway. No kidding, I say. I breathe shallow and still, a dull pain vibrates from my chest. I'm drugged up with pain meds, the most they can do in my situation. He binds my chest with bandage loosely. It won't do a thing to cure your injury, but at least the pressure could help ease the pain when the meds wear off some. Thanks. Other than that, we'll keep you for observation for another hour, and then you'll be free to go. No concussion or anything like that? No, you were lucky that your chest got the brunt of the force, but avoided your vital organs. He leaves, and I lie there wondering what would have happened had I also lost my memory. Would Winnie take care of me? Winnie. She was there at the rodeo. I saw her at the shoots, her beautiful face scrunched up in worry. Had she come over because she still cares about me? It's too bad it takes me getting injured for her to do so, but if it has, then it would have been all worth it. I shift and the movement hurts. In an hour, the nurse checks my vitals once again, and then I'm released into Sheldon's custody. First place, Sheldon tells me as he approaches my hospital bed. I almost got killed, and that's all you care about? I tease. Not bad for a 41-year-old, eh? You got that right. Sheldon's smile disappears. We thought you were a goner. I'd have had to do some apologizing to 𝗷𝗂𝘀𝗶𝗿 for subjecting Bram to the trauma.
Where is that kid? Winnie took him and Tater home. So I wasn't just imagining it, I say, dazed. She was there. What did she say? She wants to reconcile and for you to hurry up and get better. I stare at him. Serious? He grins. Just kidding. I growl, then press my hand gingerly to my chest. When I get better, remind me to smack you on the head. That wasn't funny. I almost believed you. Well, if it's any consolation, she didn't want to come up to see you. Uh-huh. But she looked worried, obviously worried enough to come to the shoots. That was nice of her to do that. If you see her, please tell her thank you. Sheldon turns and moves away from the bed. Why don't you tell her yourself? Winnie! I try to sit up, but my chest feels like I just ripped it open. Don't hurt yourself, she says as she comes up. You're a sight for sore eyes. My glance travels over her cowgirl getup, green long-sleeved western shirt that brings out the sheen of her eyes, an orange bandana tucked around her neck like a scarf, her lips painted a warm red. What boots are you wearing today? She purses her lips but lifts her right boot to reveal a teal pair. Nice. She shifts from one boot to the other. I just wanted to see how you're doing. You were a little busy at the shoots. I'm fine now, I say truthfully, and gaze into her eyes, hoping she gets my meaning. She lowers her eyes and looks around at Sheldon, who says, You want me to leave? No, she says in a hurry. Yeah, I contradict. Why don't you see what they've got in the cafeteria? Be right back. Sheldon disappears dutifully. Winnie winces. That was unnecessary. I didn't want you to feel self-conscious having him listen to every word. There's nothing he can't listen to. She blushes prettily. Isn't there? I look into her eyes and her blush deepens. I had hoped that you've come because there's a chance for us. I reach for her hand and cover it with mine. She stares at our linked hands and shifts hers so that our fingers intertwine. I'd be made of stone to say that seeing you lying there didn't stir up all these feelings, but the reality is, I don't have all my memories back, so can we take it slow and easy? You know, spend a little bit more time getting to know each other before we make any crazy decisions. It's like a gate opening up onto a glorious pasture. My throat tightens with gratitude and I squeeze her hand. Of course. Also, Mom and I had a good talk the day you were moving hay bales. I smirk. When I was all sweaty and stinky? Right. She smiles back. She told me about my dad and, well, I think I've had this chip on my shoulder about rodeo cowboys for a long time. Tell me about it. A deep breath escapes from her lips and she gazes at me steadily. I'm willing to give you, us, another chance. I swallow the lump in my throat and lift her hand to my lips. I press a kiss on her soft skin and rub it against my stubble. She sits on the edge of my bed and we press our foreheads together. She's not 100% on board, but it's enough. Winnie, baby, I murmur. I've been dreaming about this, about you. I pause. But I have a question. She lifts a delicate brow. Yes? What about Gilbert? She bites her lip. He's a very nice guy. That doesn't sound like an enthusiastic review. And he doesn't even try kissing my cheek. We chuckle. She traces my jaw with her free hand and plants a kiss on my cheek. With a little growl, I let go of her hand and slide it under her hair, on her nape. She stares at my mouth and hunger builds between us. When our lips touch, it is as though a match flares, bright and fiery. I pull her closer to deepen our kiss, then gasp with the pain on my chest. It burns and flares to my nerve endings, and I cannot breathe for several seconds. "Are you okay?" she says, worry etched on her face. As the pain subsides, I press another kiss on her lips. More than okay.
Chapter 33. Winnie. I'm running scared. I'm not 100% sure that opening my heart once again to Patrick is the right thing to do, but I'm willing to give it a shot. Still, it's been a few days, and I haven't been over to his house since he came home from the hospital. He calls me in the evening after work, and we talk for a long time. He's outrageous and romantic, making me laugh one minute and swoon the next. "When can I see you in person?" he asks in his growly, sexy voice when it's late, and he's tired but won't admit it. "Soon, I promise." Pops calls me one morning to ask if I could bring a casserole over to Patrick. I wonder if Patrick has put him up to it, but I don't make a fuss. "It'll be in the oven at the house," Pop says. "I'll already be cutting hay, and I'll leave the door unlocked. You're a sweetheart. Thank you, Winnie." "You're welcome." When I get to his house, the kitchen is slightly filled with smoke. I rush to open the oven, releasing more smoke into the house. I cough and peek at what's in the oven. It looks like what was once an enchilada casserole, burnt and crispy on the top. I turn the oven off and take out the baking dish. The casserole's not fit to be consumed, but I'm not sure how to tell Pops in the kindest way. Bless his heart. I don't have a ton of time before I have to do a showing to fix something from scratch, though. I put the burnt casserole in the trunk of my car and head over to the diner. The bell hanging at the door tinkles, announcing my arrival, and a man with salt and pepper hair and tanned skin greets me with a warm smile. "Hola, Winnie," he says, then stares at me. I feel bad because he's so friendly, and here I am, drawing a blank. "Oh, I am sorry. I heard you have been having a challenge with your memory." "It's all right," I say. "Remind me your name?" "Nestor Garcia. Nice to meet you again." He tells me that he and his daughter Sylvia have been running the establishment for several years now. He's getting on in years and says he wants to retire. A woman in the kitchen, whom I assume is his daughter, says, "He won't know what to do with himself if he does." "What can I get for you today, Winnie?" Nestor asks. "I need to get a breakfast for Patrick. Would you know what he likes to eat from here?" Sylvia comes out of the kitchen and grins. "Definitely the burrito grande." "That sounds good." About 15 minutes later, they have me all taken care of and on the road to Patrick's. The burrito makes my car smell so good. I normally don't eat breakfast, but I wish now that I had bought one for me, too. I park in front of Patrick's ranch house and pause for a minute. I need to prepare myself for being in the same space as Patrick. He keeps telling me that I'm calling the shots, and it's true. This relationship's pace will go as fast or as slow as I let it. It sure is a lot of work and responsibility. I knock on the door and Patrick's voice calls out, "Whatever you're selling, I don't want to buy it." I smile and open the door. The living room looks like a tornado came through. There's sheets spilling from the couch to the carpet, empty pizza boxes and other empty food containers on the coffee table, and a half-full liter of pop on the floor. I can't see Patrick anywhere. A muffled curse comes from the direction of the bathroom. I set the burrito in its sack on the kitchen counter, which is only slightly less messy than the living room, and go in search of Patrick. I reach the bathroom, and there he stands, shirtless, with his back turned to me. He's putting bandaging around his chest. The cursing must have come from him dropping the rest of the roll, and it's now out of his reach. "Here," I say. "Let me." He whirls around, grimaces from the sudden movement, then gapes at me. "Hey." "Hey." I walk over and matter-of-factly grab the bandage roll. He turns his head and watches our reflection in the mirror. I try to not stare at the muscles shifting under my fingers as they brush against his skin. "What are you doing here?" he asks. "I brought you breakfast." "Wait, didn't my dad talk to you?" "He did. His burnt casserole is sitting in my trunk." "Good old Pops," he snorts. "So he did talk to you about his casserole?" His shoulders slump. I actually asked him if he'd make me one, and to see if you could deliver it. I wondered. That was sneaky. And you're not mad? His voice lifts with hope. Not very. Just a little? I ignore this question. Don't tell your dad, but I bought a burrito grande from the diner instead. Yum. He turns to face me, and my fingers, skimming the bandaging on his chest, become clumsy. Turn around. I keep my eyes to his collarbone. It'll be easier. But this way I can look at you. He tips my chin up. His eyes are a piercing silver, amused and something else that makes me weak at the knees. Hungry. Mornin', Winnie. Mornin'. I tuck the bandage in the top edge of the dressing. There. I get ready to back out of his personal space where I can't seem to string along a coherent thought. He puts an arm on the door jamb so I can't move unless I duck way under it or I shove him away. You're not leaving yet, are you? My voice is even, for the most part. Just getting out of the bathroom. His arm is still in the way. His chest is bare, except for the bandage. I'd hoped to see you much sooner, he says in a low whisper. Did I really have to ask Pops to give me an excuse? I avert my eyes. You could have just asked me to bring you something. He moves closer to me, his breath warm on my cheek. And you'd have said yes? I can't seem to breathe. Maybe. He chuckles. That was what I thought. Why are you avoiding me? I raise my eyes to his. Well, I'm scared. He brushes a strand of hair away from my face, his fingers leaving a trail of sparks on my skin. Of what, baby? He closes his eyes, then opens them. Sorry, just slipped out. I shake my head to say it doesn't matter. That you and I would make the same mistake my dad and mom did. A beautiful mistake. He gives me a lopsided smile. He and she had you. It was the best thing they ever did. But what if it all turns out the same way for us? Fair enough. How about if we turn your question on its head? He searches my eyes. What if we have a great marriage? What if we spend the rest of our days having an adventure? Have a little Winnie and a little Patrick, all dressed, going to church on Sundays? That's the thing. Tears prick my eyes. We were a church-going family, but their marriage was anything but godly. That is, my dad didn't keep his vows. Winnie Stevens, his eyes bore into mine. I'll be the first to say I'm not perfect. I like to have fun, probably too much sometimes. I lied to get engaged to the woman of my dreams. But one thing you can count on is that you are the only woman I want. There's no one else who's more perfect for me than you. Without you, my life is just half as complete. There is no color, no life. So the question is, will you have me? My heart beats fast. This conversation isn't going as I had hoped. He's posing questions to me that I might not be ready to answer. How am I supposed to know I'm doing the right thing? I want you in my life, if that's what you're asking. My voice is low. But the other thing, marriage, like I said, we need to take it slow. He gives me a sweet, sad smile. I know. A gleam enters his eyes as they focus on my mouth, and my body responds with anticipation. Your burrito is getting cold, I remind him. Never mind about that, comes his gruff reply. A kiss will hurt your ribs. Good. His mouth captures mine, and I cannot think. All my fears from my past and the present flee, and I am only aware of his hands slipping down my spine and pulling me even closer. He said he doesn't care about his ribs, but I do, so I gingerly place my hands on his chest, my fingers tracing the edge of the bandage. Under my touch, his heart is hammering. He kisses me hungrily, and I respond in kind, allowing him to deepen the kiss. After a few delicious minutes, he groans and pulls away, his eyes hooded with desire. I want to kiss you all day, he says with ragged breath, but I respect what you want. To go slow. I nod and run my tongue over my tender, thoroughly kissed lips. He grabs my hand with a shaky laugh. We'd better get that burrito. And you'd better get a shirt on. If I must. We exit the bathroom to the hallway, and I pull him to a stop. Wait. He looks back at me. There is one thing I need to ask of you. And what is that? As I've talked to Mom, she described the life at the rodeo. Doesn't sound too much like it's family-friendly. A nerve ticks at his jaw. What are you saying, Winnie? You want me to get out of rodeo? I bite my lip. I know you love it, but... His stare is unnerving. I almost don't want to go on, but I do, because it's important to me. You can choose to do rodeo, I say, but it has to be a deliberate choice, considering its effect on me and our future kids. That's asking a lot of me, Winnie, to give up a sport I love. But I'll think about it. His expression has dimmed. I probably shouldn't have asked that much of him. But if I don't now, then when?
Chapter 34. Patrick. 2 months later. "You're riding Festus today, Patrick," Ben Locke, the stock contractor head honcho, tells me as I arrive at the rodeo. "Gee, great. Thanks, Ben. How's the family?" "Growing. I'm up to 6 great-grandkids. Can you believe it? These old bones need to retire soon." "Somehow I can't picture you just sitting around in your ranch house." "Neither can I." His light brown eyes twinkle. "The day I retire, my wife will push me back out the house." We laugh. "Gonna be a good crowd today." Ben gestures to my tack. "You need anything, just holler." "Sure will, thanks." The fall air is cooler, but still pleasant. Thanksgiving is just around the corner, and most rodeos in these parts are taking a break for the season. This will be the last in the region for a little while. I walk down the chute alley and deposit my bag on the ground. There's kids on the railing watching me, and I greet them. They have that hero worship expression that I'm sure was on my face too when I was that age, thinking rodeo champs were like gods. Sorry to burst your bubble, kids. Winnie's words come back to haunt me. Since her visit to my house, we've spent every week together, but her ultimatum, her or the rodeo, is like the elephant in the room. What would I do instead? I've wrestled this question in my mind. I ranch for Pops, and it provides some for my needs, but it's certainly not enough for a family, especially if Winnie and I have children. I love rodeo too much to give it up, broken ribs and all. Then I get to thinking about Winnie and her request to think about it. She'd resign herself to a life with me on the rodeo circuit, and I have another good 10 years in me, I can feel it. 10 more years of risk and danger, excitement and victories, triumphs and certain injury, maybe even potential death. Highly unlikely, but of late, I've been staring at my mortality. What would I do instead? That's the rub. I wish now that I had gone on to college or even vocational school. As it is, rodeo is all I know. Rodeo isn't inherently bad. It's the stuff that cowboys are made of. It tests our grit and courage. It changes boys to men. More than show, rodeos are a throwback to our Western heritage. In my recent memory, green eyes look back at me, not demanding. She knows I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. She loves me enough to give me the choice. If I were to stay in rodeo, she wouldn't have a choice. She'd probably stay home like she always has, raising our kids. She and I aren't naive enough to expect that there wouldn't be temptations along the way. So many women fling themselves at you, it don't matter if you're married. I shake the thoughts from my head. It's time to shut everything out but the ride I'll be on. I squat and stretch, testing my ribs. I still feel twinges of discomfort, but they're pretty much fully healed. I imagine myself on Festus. I know that horse, and I picture his usual moves, his penchant for crow hopping not once but twice, usually veering to the right. A half hour later, my arm and hand are wrapped, and I'm waiting for my turn at a chute. I grab the railing and loosen myself by bouncing lightly on the balls of my feet, encased in my boots. I take my hat off for the national anthem. As the flag and its bearer lope past on a beautiful Palomino paint quarter horse, my chest stirs with a lovely ache. I love this life, this lifestyle that has given me more opportunities and successes beyond my boyhood dreams. Every ride takes 8 seconds, if you're lucky to last through the buzzer, but it's different each time. I never thought I'd have to give this all up for a woman. And I don't have to. She said so herself. I scan the stands, settling my gaze on the area where she said she'd sit. I spot her red flaming hair. As much as I love rodeo, I love Winnie even more. When my event rolls around, Festus snorts as I clamber on. "It's you and me, old boy," I say. "You gonna make me look good out there?" He snorts again. I'll take that as a yes. When I nod, the gate is released and Festus springs out in his usual bombastic fashion. I feel good, really good about this ride, like everything is falling into place. My hands secure, my body is aligned. My recently healed ribs protest, but I tell myself it's only 8 seconds. 8 long, excruciating, painful, amazing seconds. The buzzer goes off, and this time, the pickup men get me off Festus without a hitch. I land on my feet and face an adoring crowd. But I only have eyes for one woman. I look right at her, and she's on her feet, clapping.
Chapter 35. Winnie. I should be happy for Patrick, but my heart sinks instead. This taste of victory will only lead him to want more of it. I'd given him the choice, and I would be shocked if he doesn't continue on the rodeo circuit after this. I get up and throw the basket of junk food I'd eaten in the trash, making my way down the bleachers to the side exit. I walk past competitors exercising their horses, men and women who have made a life of all this. They seem happy enough. I think back to how Mom described rodeo life. At some point, she had to stay home and give us girls a normal life. Would Patrick and I also have to lead separate lives? I shove the thought away and arrive at the chutes. Patrick's already back. He's down by his tack, talking to a cowboy, who hands him a business card. Patrick looks up from it at the older cowboy, stunned. The man leaves, tipping his hat at me as he passes. In his Western-style jacket and huge felt hat, he looks like one of those Texan cattle barons, powerful and moneyed. "Congratulations," I say and hug him. He pulls me up to my tippy toes and kisses me hard and quick. "Thanks." He looks back at the business card in his hand. "You won't believe what just happened. That cowboy who was talking to me is from the rodeo circuit in the Texas region. He wants to talk to me about sponsorships, says my age could attract a certain marketing demographic." "That's great," I say, trying my best to smile. He lifts his head, his gaze sharpening. "You don't like it." I don't say anything. "I know you want me to get out. It's your choice." My voice sounds weary. "Winnie, there's nothing else I can do but rodeo." I nod. "Would you have to move to Texas?" "Naturally." His quick answer, as though it were something obvious to everyone, kills something inside of me. I swivel on my heels and walk out of the alley. I walk fast, but his stride is bigger. He catches up with me outside the chute area. People are turning to watch us. "If you want to talk, let's go to your truck," I suggest. I turn on my heel once we reach our destination. It's quiet here, away from the crowds. Here I can think, despite the fact that standing in front of me is the most attractive cowboy I know. The rush of victory is still obvious in his heightened coloring, the swagger in his step. He rode that horse with ribs that had cracked just 8 weeks before, and that says something about his character. "I have something to say," I start, and he nods. "I told you that it's up to you if you go rodeo or not. But I changed my mind. I can't do this." He looks pained. "And I've thought about it. There's nothing else I know to do. There's cattle or ranch work, earning pennies. You're exaggerating." "Maybe I am, but it's true. You want me to push cattle all my life instead of riding bareback? Fine. You can have me that way if you want, living a half life. And all I'm saying is that having you gone on the rodeo circuit, especially in Texas, will mean me living a half life too. We stand there at an impasse, neither of us budging, both of us right for our own reasons. So where does that leave us? He says, taking his hat off and raking his fingers through his hair. My voice is soft. I guess you'll have to make a choice after all. He stares at me. Winnie, let's not go down that road again. If we don't now, then when will we? My voice is full of unshed tears. When it's too late to change course? When he doesn't answer right away, I turn and start walking. He calls out, "Where are you going?" I turn my head without looking at him. I brought my car, remember? He doesn't run after me, doesn't beg me to stay, and I know I may have just lost him forever.
Chapter 36. Patrick. 2 weeks later. I park the tractor and kill the engine. I'm sweaty and dirty and gritty, and all I want to do is to wash it all off. I grab an already sweaty rag and do a pass-through over my face and neck, probably smearing more than taking off dirt. The barn door creaks open and shut with a soft thud that echoes into the rafters, followed by the sound of boots thunking on the dirt floor. I can recognize those footsteps anywhere, sassy and assured. Past a wall of paneling, Winnie comes into view. Her gaze lights upon me without surprise, a gleam I can't quite place sparkling in those tawny green eyes. It isn't exactly a softening, but she's lowered her guard, I reckon. Her beautiful hair is gathered loosely at the nape, wild tendrils softening the angular edges of her beautiful face. "I was looking for you," she says, "and here I am." She glances away, then back, amusement creeping in her eyes as she gives me a once-over. "You've been baling hay." "Nah, I just like rolling in sweat and hay." Her lips part in a real smile, making her eyes sparkle. I want her to smile like that some more. I want so desperately to make her smile like that at me forever. I almost lost her twice. Never again. She turned serious again. "Pops told me what you did." "What did I do now?" I put my hands up in tease. Kicking at a pile of hay, she chews on her lip. "You turned down Texas." Her eyes flicked to mine. "Why?" "Because I care about you. Because I am head over heels, tractor backwards and forwards in love with you. Because I would do anything to win your heart, this time for good. I wanted to do something nice for you." "Something nice?" She chokes on the word with a little laugh. "Thank you." It was nothing. If I weren't watching her closely, I'd have missed the little shake of her head. "It was something. What'll you do instead?" "Retire from rodeo, like you want." The words bounce around between us. "For real?" Her voice squeaks slightly. I nod. "For real." Winnie presses her finger to her lip like she doesn't trust herself to speak. "Ben Locke, my stock contractor, is retiring," I explain. "I talked to him and he wants me to oversee some of their cattle operation just outside Colorado Springs. He wants to expand before he turns the business over to his son. I'd be more than a hand. It'll be a well-paying job." I pause. I had been thinking about it, but didn't know how to make it happen. Then God sent Ben my way. "Cattle drives and all," she says with a smile. "Won't you be bored out of your mind?" I'm sure feeling rodeo in my 41-year-old bones. It's time to settle down. Besides, I grin, I don't think being married to you will be boring at all. "Marriage?" Her eyes are bright. "Aren't you jumping the gun a little?" You tell me. I look right at her. Am I? She's walking toward me, slowly, deliberately.
Part of me is worried that up close she's going to see what a filthy ranch hand I am. Part of me doesn't care, just wanting to reel her in good and slow. She stops about a yard from where I'm sitting, raising her face to study me. Her freckles dust her creamy complexion, heightened by a spread of sun across her cheeks. I could drown in her cat-like eyes.
"You're not so bad after all."
Her voice is low and tugs at all sorts of strings inside me. She sounds like the Winnie I know, the Winnie I've missed. Though to be honest, the newer, mellower Winnie has me snookered too. I wait to see what else she has to say. I have all the time in the world. This is a foreign feeling nowadays. The not rushing, the taking things slow, the stopping to think and to savor, to just be. I'm kind of liking the new Patrick. Could she like him too? Her mischievous smile spreads into a grin.
"You're covered with junk."
Occupational hazard.
"I say."
She closes the gap between us and climbs up the tractor steps until we're more or less eye to eye and I could in one swoop pull her to me. I sit still in the bucket seat just watching, but at her nearness, my chest tightens like I can't breathe. Her gaze roams my face and she reaches up, her fingers picking pieces of hay off my forehead, sending a little shower of alfalfa onto my cheek. I don't dare move. Don't want to break the spell in this little space in the tractor. Don't want to spook her like a filly. Her finger brushes over my eyelashes and my eyes flutter shut. I've never had the sensation before of at once being helpless and strong, like I am one big machine suddenly hooked up onto the outlet in the garage, voltage too much for what the appliance is rated, sparks flying and sizzling. All that's lacking is a smell of burning in the air. Electric current runs through me, pulsating and dangerous. And now her palm is trailing over my stubble, back and forth, like she doesn't realize what it's doing to me. But I know she does, because when I open my eyes, she's got a smile on her lips. My hand slides along her back until my large ranch work calloused hands cup her nape. Her back arches, but her face resists. Through my haze of pent-up longing, I sense she is watching me. I pull her so our mouths are nearly touching, but at the very last moment, her fingers cover my lips.
"Not yet."
Her whisper is smooth as silk, terrible and great, teasing and bossy. "Baby, you're killing me." Her laugh is low and throaty, just as I remember.
"Good."
And when she finally kisses me and I kiss her back, I know I am where I belong. The end.
This has been A Cowboy for All Seasons, Riverdale Ranch Romance Book Number 7, written by Jewel Allen, narrated by Melissa Connell and Scott Rose. Copyright 2022 by Jewel Allen. Production copyright by Jewel Allen.